team because you believe in it. As players, this is the time that you find success is in an adverse situation where most may quit. So, it's been a long season, but it was probably the validation of why we've really been putting so much into this team and why we've been fighting for the season to stay alive.
Jordan Brooks agrees and says, if you got to fight, then fight.
For me, it's a mixture of both. I got to see where we at and, to keep the belief alive and keep the belief going. Like I told the guys before the game last week, if they say if it's 0.1% chance, then we fight for that chance. Because nobody knows what can happen. Everybody else outside will be like, oh, they got no chance. But you don't know who's going to win that game or who's going to lose that game and how it's going to shape up.
It's kind of been an odd week of practice for the Dolphins, with Christmas right smack dab in the middle of the week. Are they prepared enough to beat the Browns, an inch closer to a playoff miracle? Of course, other things have to happen too. But hope springs eternal. Time to get into it with Gameday Uncensored, the pregame show for real Miami football fans, with Tobin and Solana, Omar and Beasley, on AM 560 Sports, WQAM, FM 99.9 HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Edmore's has your back. Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click EdmoreSawgrassCadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And good morning, everybody. It is game day. Uncensored here, 560 WQAM. Brendan Tobin here with you alongside my co-host Alejandro Solana. Produced this morning by Dan Day as the Miami Dolphins going into today's game against the Cleveland Browns, a miserable city. It's apparently sloppy, not cold, but sloppy, windy. Enjoy that, my boy Leroy Horde out there who loves that city. I mean, but today, Solana, the Dolphins are going into a day that was a very weird Saturday for the Miami Dolphin fan. I mean, I was out last night at a Home Goods because my wife and I were perusing between movie and between dinner. And I'm like looking on my game cast of what's going on with this Broncos versus Bengals game. Squeaky cheeks. I'm like, wait, they scored too early. What's going on here? I had to go back and see that some guy got hurt. They had to stop the clock. And then all of a sudden, the greatest catch you've ever seen looks like it's about to, clinch things up for the Broncos. Thankfully, Sean Payton doesn't know the rules and didn't know that he just needed a tie because he's an idiot. And the Bengals win. And so the Dolphins' chances remain open. Although today, it appears no Tua.
No bueno.
Nope.
No Tua. No bueno. I mean, brutal. By the way, just going back to Cleveland really quickly, enjoy Leroy. Crowder once called that place the anus of America. I don't know if you remember that, Tobin, but in 2014, when I think he was on WQAM, he called it the anus of America, and it was like crazy headline-worthy news in the city of Cleveland. You know what? He wasn't wrong.
I don't recall that. I always just remember the Joakim Noah quote of like, nobody wants to go vacation in Cleveland. Have you ever heard of anybody saying they want to vacation in Cleveland? And he's right. Except Leroy. Except Leroy, who wants to go bang the drum today for the Cleveland Browns.
Is that really what he's doing? He's banging the drum?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's kind of like a high honor, isn't it?
He's very loved over there. He's very loved by the Cleveland Browns.
Why?
I mean, he was on a team with Bernie Kosar,
I'm kidding.
Bill Belichick before the team moved out there.
I love Leroy. I don't think
you guys have like a frenemy thing going on. I don't think you do. You guys do love each other.
He made fun of me when I tore my ACL. I can't forgive. I cannot forgive.
Understood. But yeah, man, I got to be honest with you. Yesterday, just enjoying the day. Was enjoying the Pop-Tart Bowl and the Miami Heat, getting run off the court by the Atlanta Hawks. In the midst of all of this, the worst news of the day by far was that Tua was downgraded to doubtful with this hip injury that he's been dealing with for a couple of weeks. It's tough not to feel like the air's been let out of the balloon, Solana. Like, they had this very slim margin already, but we've already seen what this team looks like without Tua out there at quarterback. And now you got Snoop Huntley with your season on the line. It's so deflating to have this be the way that you go out, because look, whatever the slim hopes are, they're there. And you're just a Broncos team that's coached by a dum-dum and a terrible Colts team doing Colts stuff against another bad team away. All you have to do is go take care of your business, but now you got to do it with, once again, your backup quarterback, which has just gone terrible for the Dolphins.
I want to know more about, what it is that is keeping – I know it's his hip, obviously, but Tua all week kept kind of hinting like, yeah, I'm going to play. I'm going to play through this, right? And obviously, Tobin, an injury can get worse, but he was limited in practice, so I have a hard time believing he was tackled in practice and it made the injury worse. I wonder how much of this is the Dolphins holding Tua out or keeping Tua from hurting himself in a game where they don't really think, it's going to end up mattering just because of how slim the Dolphins' playoff chances are. Because, Tobin, if it's not, here's the way I'm perceiving it. You tell me if I'm wrong. But once again, the Miami Dolphins season is on the line, and Tua Tagovailoa can't be in that game. I mean, we've seen that now 2 times out of the last 3 years. So that doesn't sit right with me.
No,
that's a tough pill to swallow. Again, and I get it. Their playoff chances are slim. And if this is the Dolphins or Tua say, hey, look, we're not getting into the playoffs. Why put me out there? Why risk further injury? Then I'd be cool with that. Honestly, I'm cool with that. But if the Dolphins still feel like, hey, we have a chance to go at this thing, we're trying to still give ourselves any opportunity to be in the playoffs, and Tua can't be ready for that game, then again, we're in that situation.
Yeah, it's not look, whatever the situation is, even if the Dolphins somehow sneak into the playoffs without him, which is almost impossible, but let's just say that they were able to, of course, it's going to be another one of those questions, because one of the biggest questions surrounding him has always been his durability. It's not really his talent. It's, can this guy stay on the football field? And it's been 2 things that have really hurt him throughout his career: concussions, and this is the same injury, the same hip, although I guess in a different spot, that he had coming into the NFL that he's talked about has given him issues, has made him less mobile, has made him not as good as he was when he was at Alabama. So now this flares up as an injury again. I don't, look, I know that was a physical game. Apparently this happened in the Texans game. We know that he got his ass kicked that game because the offensive line was, made of Swiss cheese, and there's dudes who never played tackle playing tackle, and he's running for his life against one of the most prolific pass rushes, and he's running all over the place to try and get first downs, and his 300-pounders landed near him. But yeah, man, as much as you feel for him, you also, the fan base who is struggling with the idea of this guy being the face of your franchise every year, it just never feels like he's there for the final bell at the end. Like, you just want at least the chance to go the distance, and he's not there again. And that is a tough pill to swallow for sure.
You just wonder, how it got to this point, because we knew after the Texans game, we kind of he got his ass kicked, right?
Yes.
He did. So you just figured, okay, he played last week, and it's not going to get to the point where now he has to miss a game. So yeah, and look, I feel for him. I know Tua wants to be out there,
of course.
which is why Tobin, even if yesterday the Broncos end up winning that game, and this game was meaningless for the Dolphins because they were eliminated. I expected Tua to play. I expected us to have this conversation, like, should he play? When I thought the Broncos had won the game before the Bengals came back and won it, I was kind of thinking of all the things we were going to talk about. Like, is it worth putting Tyreek Hill out there? Is it worth putting Tua out there for these games that don't matter? But my expectation was they're going to play because they don't want to give up on the season. They still want to go win the final two for Mike McDaniel. Like, that was my expectation. So, it just sucks that we have to keep kind of having these conversations about Tua rather than literally praising the fact that for the most part this year, when he was healthy, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the AFC.
Yeah, I get you, but look, if they were out of it, of course, I think that I don't think that he should have played if they were out of it, but they're not out of it, and I think that, to be honest with you, the only reason he's probably not ruled out right now, even though everybody is saying it's unlikely, and Skylar Thompson got elevated, the only reason that that's the case is probably because they're wondering, like, he's probably, what can you guys shoot me up with to give this a shot? Almost a la Teron Armstead a couple of weeks ago, where he probably shouldn't have played and he lost function. I think that's probably what Tua is pushing for. But yeah, man, this is one of those things that, how can he not feel? He's already told us once already this year that he feels responsible for the record that they have because he made a stupid move putting himself in harm's way. So to now have this catch up on you, all right, yeah, like, look, people get hurt, but he does miss a lot of games, and this is at the most inopportune time where we're wondering, hey, can this guy, because look, these aren't good teams the Dolphins have to beat. These are bad teams the Dolphins have to beat. So at least, even if they had a chance to send you into the playoffs and bring it, yeah, that's kind of a signature for Tua to have in his career. If he has to sit on the sidelines for that, I'm sure that's got to eat him alive.
For sure. Are you excited, Tobin? Here we go. Season on the line. Snoop Huntley right back in the ball game, baby. Let's go. Who's excited?
No.
Who's excited?
He was on their practice squad, so I mean, revenge game.
That's interesting. I forgot about that. If this was against the Ravens, I'd say, all right, revenge game, 100%. But I don't know. Did they take Dorian Finney Thompson over, or what's his name? Dorian Thompson Robinson? I'm getting him confused with Dorian Finney Smith.
There's only so many Dorians, and they all have hyphens in them.
DFS, DRT, I don't know, whatever. But did they choose him over Snoop Huntley? Is that what ended up happening?
By the way, as you say that, Dorian Finney-Smith was just traded to the Lakers.
No, you're lying.
Literally. Like, I swear to God, that just happened because it was like Shams. Yeah, they traded D'Angelo Russell to the Nets, and they got Dorian Finney-Smith for the Lakers.
Did they?
How odd is that?
That's weird.
It is weird. Tracy Wolfson of CBS, this is what she had to say. She does sidelines. She did sidelines last week on the Romo Nance broadcast, their lead sideline reporter. She said, Tua told me last week that it would be a challenge to play through the hip last week. He got through it, obviously, but obviously aggravated it. She told me it's the same hip he had surgery on in college, but fortunately a different spot. Great.
That doesn't make me feel any more comfortable at all.
Oh, man. What a time, everybody.
So like, we're for sure not expecting him to play because outside of Ian Rappaport, have you seen anything else that
I've seen? This is what Ian Rappaport said this morning. He said it happened last week. It got progressively worse this week. He's pushing. It's not a major injury, but it's unlikely he goes with the season on the brink. That was what Rappaport said this morning.
Fox and CBS are saying he's questionable. They just flashed it on the screen, both Fox and CBS.
So they're upgrading him, Dan?
They just said questionable. That's all they said.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. It's definitely, look, I'm sure he's pushing like hell to play. He knows, dude. He knows. Like, there's no way that he doesn't know what that's going to look, even if he can't play. And I'm not questioning to his toughness. I'm just saying optics, he's got to try like hell to give it a go if he can give it a go in this situation. Even if that means, hey, he looks like dog bleep after a drive. Because, I mean, you know what? You gotta run from Myles Garrett with a bad hip. Oof, scary.
Very.
Take a break.
I just hope that, If all week he felt like, yeah, I'll be good, then fine, But I hope he wasn't trying to mask something greater because, bro, like I don't want this guy to go out there, get tackled by Myles Garrett, and now he needs hip surgery. You know what I mean, Tobin? Like, I hope he makes a wise decision because as much as I'm criticizing you for not being available at the end of the season, I'd rather have that conversation than Tua has to miss the first 6 weeks of next year because he had hip surgery again. Like, if this is very serious, then sit out, man. Our playoff chances are so minuscule. Like, sit the hell out.
Take a break here on Game Day Uncensored. Lots to dive into, of course. We'll talk to Adam Beasley later on in the program. We will talk to Omar Kelly later on in the program. Back with more on Game Day Uncensored after this.
WQAM broadcasting live from the Ed Morse
and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Chevrolet. Edmore Sawgrass Chevrolet is your lease return headquarters. Click EdmoreSawgrassChevrolet.com and see how you're backed by Morse when it comes to returning your lease. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here on 560 WQAM. Getting you ready for a 4:05 kick from Cleveland. Miami Dolphins getting set to take on the 3-12 Cleveland Browns. They're a 3-point road favorite, Miami, today, as they are trying to unseasonably warm in Cleveland, but the weather is terrible. It's going to be windy and it's going to be sloppy out there, which are also not things that are conducive to success for the Miami Dolphins typically. But you do have a Cleveland team that's on their third quarterback here. So, and the fourth one that they had is now playing quarterback for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this all goes for Miami here today. Obviously, we're on Tua watch. It does not appear great. The news that QB1 is downgraded to doubtful yesterday. And this, of course, coming off of a pretty nice win against the San Francisco 49ers last week, Solana. I thought that, for the most part, the Dolphins had one of their more complete performances of the season, although it being against a Niners team that's not what I think everybody expected as the defending NFC champs. I still thought, got the run game going. We had a rotation on the offensive line. We had less Liam Eichenberg, not full. We're not weaned completely off of Eichenberg, but we had less Eichenberg than ever, which makes me happy. Jason Sanders wins his second AFC Special Teams Player of the Week honors in 2 weeks. And just all in all, I thought that this was a really rock solid performance from Miami going into this game up against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, you're just hoping you can build off of that, right? And look, Liam Eichenberg actually graded out okay when he was out there on the field the other day. I think there's two things.
Less is more.
Yeah, less is more. Isaiah Wynn graded out better, and look no further than the game clinching touchdown by Devon Achane at the end, who created that hole right through the middle of the offensive line and right through the middle of that defense. Isaiah Wynn just pushing dudes, man. He looked great. And then Teron Armstead being out there, it shows you that when he's healthy, the offensive line is totally different, man. Totally different.
Yeah,
when
for sure.
You get him and you get a competent guy, not Jackson, Toyota man playing right tackle. When you actually have Kendall Lamb out there and you have Teron, and then you have Isaiah Wynn, who we know last year was really solid. The offensive line can look competent, Tobin, and it did. It did for most of the game. Tua wasn't sacked at all. So
that's why they all got game balls.
That's right. That's right. The entire offensive line, and only what 9 game balls handed out. That's a record for Mike McDaniel.
It depends if you want to. I don't know if the offensive line. I feel like they each get a game ball, so that's 6 linemen.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he also gave out 4 other game balls, which would put game balls at double digits for him.
Okay, at 10.
And then technically he got a game ball. We'll get into the meaning of that later. So that's 11 game balls that were given out by the Miami Dolphins to get them to 7-8 on the season. A lot of game balls.
It's funny because we looked at the beginning of the schedule this year and we're like, oh, easy games for the Dolphins outside of the Bills, week 2, you're looking at a Dolphin schedule where you're all kind of saying 6-1, 6-2, and then they're in 2-6. And we all expected the back end of this schedule to just be a gauntlet, right? Texans on the road, Cleveland on the road, San Francisco at home, New York to end the season. This was going to be a gauntlet. Who would have expected week 17 comes around and the Miami Dolphins are going to Cleveland as massive favorites on the road? I couldn't have expected that at all. So it sucks that this is a situation you're in. You would have loved to have taken this situation had the season gone your way, where now you're going into Cleveland, you're going into New York, and you're battling not to make the playoffs, hoping for a miracle to make the playoffs, but on the contrary, like just battling for playoff seeding. Like, which seed are you going to be finalizing for yourself? So it's a bummer, man. Like the way that it ended up shaking out with the schedule, it's a bummer that this is where the Dolphins are at.
Yeah, because they're not in. I mean, look, it's not a great position they're in, but it's not a bad position from their own control standpoint that they're in. Like these are very, very winnable games, which makes the Tua injury that much more crushing. Like I think you took on a Niners team last year that does have a lot of great players on it and does have some pretty good talent, coaches that know each other well, and I think the Dolphins had as rock solid performances they've had this season. Yeah, they still don't have like the signature win against the good team, but these next two teams they're taking on are definitely worse than what they took on. Now it's on the road, like which is always a question with them, with Tua, without Tua. Like how can they have that carry over? Obviously, you're going to need the one positive from last week is the run game got going, and the run game has been absolutely inept basically for half the season. And so to see that find itself again, if you're going to have success in this game against the Cleveland Browns, then certainly you can lean on that, hopefully. If it is a question of Snoop Huntley playing, the one thing you got to hope for is, hey, they've been kind of rats off a ship on Skyler for a while. He's definitely gotten more knowledge of the offense and more chemistry with the team. I'm not expecting him to put up 300, but you got to feel like it's going to be in a better spot than it was with the position he was thrown into earlier in the year.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I can't imagine, though, it would be Skyler, right?
God, no.
No, they cut him. I mean, they literally cut him for a reason, and they signed him back to the practice squad, but they cut him for a reason. Like, they feel much better about Snoop Huntley than they do about Skylar Thompson. He had his opportunity, and it sucks for Skylar, but he blew it big time in Seattle. And I just don't think anybody would feel comfortable going back down that road. But, hey, Tobin, you bring up, the running game, and we bring up the offensive line. It kind of begs the question, Isaiah Wynn was standing on the sideline for 2-3 games for the past month without getting in there. And the Dolphins are trotting out Liam Eichenberg. And I understand that the concept of, you want continuity because it's something that Mike McDaniel has spoken about, where you just want like continuity on the offensive line, that togetherness of those guys playing multiple games. And I understand that perspective, but how could you not look at how much better Isaiah Wynn was and how much more productive the run game was with Isaiah Wynn out there, and not say like, what the hell did they wait so long to go to him for?
I don't know, dude. I really have no idea. Obviously they did an interesting thing last week of limiting the snaps for both guys. So you kind of slow rolled Isaiah Wynn in there, and Eichenberg, who had been playing banged up as it is, didn't have to take as many reps. But why this was not the plan the week beforehand, I guess, you didn't have Armstead. So there was that also to add into the fray. So you're trying, I guess, probably keep as much continuity as possible, especially putting a rookie on the line. Hey, dude, I don't know. I you know me, man. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point. Any time, any snap that 74 is not out there is a good snap for me. Like I just feel more at ease, and we'll see what happens. But that's the thing, Solana. We're gonna come back to this season, right? And there'll be a lot of an autopsy on this year and thinking of what went down. But the Dolphins not being prepared for Tua to go down, and the Dolphins not being prepared for any offensive linemen to go down, while scoffing at any concerns of those offensive linemen going down, is really going to be on the gravestone of this season. Like wherever it ends, which is not going to be in the Super Bowl. Like even if the Dolphins make the playoffs and get absolutely throttled in week 1 of the playoffs, which is probably what's going to happen. What's going to be thought of is like, didn't prepare for Tua being out, didn't prepare for our offensive line falling apart. And you would sit here from the start of the season being like, how could you guys do that? Like how could that be the place where we're at? But yeah, I'm glad that I'm glad at least there wasn't stubbornness of continuing to throw Eichenberg out there for the whole game, because Mike McDaniel's taking jobs. Raheem Mostert, David Long. The fact that guy was going to continue to get snaps, even if it was all of them, is crazy to me. I wouldn't have understood it. So I'm glad that at least they tried something else. Will they do the same thing today? We'll see. Maybe they feel better now. Eichenberg's got a confidence game under his belt, but I would hope it would go the other way and you give more snaps to Isaiah Wynn. That's what I would hope.
Yeah, you can't argue against it. And if it is going to end up being Snoop Huntley today, then you're going to need that run game to be productive. Like you need it to be productive. I don't know if you necessarily need 160 yards on the ground like you got last week, but you're going to need close to 100, hopefully passing that century mark, because you just saw how different the offense looks when that gets going, right? Especially, look, man, like Tyreek is banged up. We don't know if Jalen Waddle is going to end up playing. We don't.
It doesn't sound like he is.
Right. It doesn't
just
sound
by
like
the national reports are saying it sounds unlikely that Jalen Waddle's going to play.
And even if he did, Jalen Waddle not 100%. Like we've seen that before, right? It's not pretty. It's not great. And that, with the idea of this year, Waddle and Hill have kind of been like coin flip. You don't really know what you're going to get. And if Tua doesn't play, we saw that for 4 weeks, how those guys couldn't even get the ball. So your options are limited. And I think you have to be able to lean on that. I saw Raheem Mostert say that, he's been playing with a fractured sternum. He told the Miami Herald that. And that does kind of clear up some of the question marks about Raheem. Because, look, I think the fumbling issue, Mike McDaniel, sent a message by benching him. But I also think, the guy's playing with a fractured chest, a fractured sternum. Like, that matters too, Tobin. You can't just dismiss that and be like, oh, the guy's washed, the guy's a bum. He's been playing through a pretty severe injury.
I agree. I think it's that's a brutal injury to have. That's the same thing that Kachuk had on the Panthers, and it almost feels like it took him a whole year to look like himself after suffering that in the Stanley Cup the year beforehand. So football, 300 pounders cracking you of all that stuff. Yeah, I'm sure that was brutal for him as well. You're listening to Gameday Uncensored, which is brought to you in part by your South Florida Chevy dealers. You're looking for more power, capability, and technology with Chevy trucks. You're ready for anything Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. We'll take a look at this playoff picture and hear from some of the players on where they stand right now going into this Week 17 matchup against Cleveland. Take a break here. Back after this.
Football coverage on WQA.
Uncensored on AM 560 Sports, WQAM, FM 99.9 HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Ed Morse has your back. Ed Morse Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click edmoresawgrasscadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here on 560 WQAM. Tobin here with you alongside Solana as we take you up until the 4:05 kick against the Cleveland Browns. Dan Day producing for us today. Dan, what's your status for today? I know we got Heat basketball, so we have a super post-game show coming up today. What is the status for action?
Total opposite.
Oh.
I'm done when you're done today. Solana, you're not done, though. You actually have the Heat game to worry about.
So no post-game today?
No post-game.
All right. Rat bastards.
Damn.
Yeah. Say how you feel, Dan.
I always like to have a catharsis after each game and have calls and, just keep it real and have fun. But, it's one of those
Got to react to Heat Rockets.
I'm going to Total Wine after this, man.
Oh, man. Hey, that's a good place. That's a haven.
Hey, Dan, if you want to jump on for the cool down and just do an hour on the Dolphins, man, I listen. I don't think anybody would complain.
Once again, by that time, Total Wine and maybe Jensen's Liquor Store will have kicked in too much. So maybe a little too much uncensored action right there.
Understood.
Right now,
the post-game show. Hopefully next week we will have one.
All right. Well, you got anything you want to chime in, Dan? You let us know, man. It's just because I understand. Right now, everyone's feeling it. The Dolphins yesterday did get a gift. The they did not from the Chargers. The Chargers throttled the Patriots. I mean, that was a no-doubter yesterday. Denver lost to the Bengals in overtime in just a crazy game. Sean Payton decides not to go for two at the end. He then decides, how should we manage this? All I need is a tie. Then he's like, well, we knew the tie was good, but it kind of felt like he didn't know the rules while the game was going on. He just went that way as to why he didn't go for two at the end. But either way, the Bengals get it done. Joe Burrow balling out with T. Higgins yesterday, and they get the win. Now, the Bengals, this is a crazy thing for them because we go from rooting for the Bengals to now the Bengals are rooting like hell against the Dolphins because they basically need everything the Dolphins need, but they also need the Dolphins to go at least 1-1 the rest of the way, Solana.
Right, yeah. Everybody needs a Colts loss. One more Colts loss. And how do you feel about this? Colts have to play against the Giants today on the road in New York, but New York doesn't win. The Giants don't win at MetLife. I don't think they've won there this year yet. So that doesn't seem promising. And then next week, I believe the Colts host the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have your boy McCorkle Jones starting at quarterback. Look, I don't think the Colts are a very good team. And I think Anthony Richardson, he's looked better since they benched Joe Flacco and he came back in. He's looked better and they've won games, but I don't know how much confidence he genuinely instills in
He's not playing
today. Football games.
Flacco's in today.
AR's out?
Out.
What the hell happened to AR?
He gets banged up too, dude. I don't know what to tell you. He's out. Flacco's in. So it's Flacco versus Drew Lock for the Dolphins' hopes and dreams.
I missed that completely. Oh, Joe Flacco winning 2 straight games in 2024 to keep the Dolphins out of the playoffs is just killer, man. It's just killer.
He can get willy-nilly with the football too, so there's always that hope. The Jaguars did beat the Colts earlier this year, but yeah, I would put our hopes, first the Dolphins got to win.
Correct.
That's a big hurdle. Mm-hmm. Second, I would say I would lean more towards next week being the one you want. And then, of course, we have Denver, who has to lose to Kansas City, who has nothing to play for, but maybe they don't want all this time off, I guess. I don't really...
No,
unless they're Unless they're in a position they don't want Denver in the playoffs. Like everybody would rather have the Dolphins in the playoffs, especially if there's no Tua. That's probably like because nobody wants Joe Burrow in the playoffs, right? Nobody wants Joe Burrow the way he's playing right now. If you're gonna want one of these stinkers in the playoffs, I kind of feel like all the top playoff teams would probably want to take on a banged up Dolphins team more so than anybody.
Yeah. Or the Colts, if it's Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson,
True.
like probably the Colts. But yeah, nobody wants the Bengals. I mean, hey, Tobin, Joe Burrow, if his defense was like decent, that guy would probably be the MVP this year, right?
Oh, I mean, like he's probably going to get votes. Like he probably won't win. I'm sure it's going to go to Josh Allen and then maybe Lamar, but he'll get votes. Like but they're in the same position the Dolphins are in because they've lost, gotten to such a hole early on in the season.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Here's Calais Campbell. This was him earlier in the week, the big man who might get released if the Dolphins lose and are out of it. But here is Calais Campbell on what it's like watching all these teams right now.
Well, it's hard. It's hard because, you want to be in there. You want to be in the dance. And so, you go through the whole process and, you turn into a fan a little bit. You're hoping and wishing that the teams you need to lose. And, I kind of feel like the biggest hater, man. I'm a hater out there right now because I be hating on the Broncos and Chargers and the Colts. It's just it's not the ideal way of being a fan, but it is what it is. So I really want the Dolphins, to be a playoff team. So for us to get that, we have to go out there and get some help. And so I grew up in Denver too, so I used to be the biggest Bronco fan, and all my family still are Broncos fans. But I'm like, nah, we gotta be haters now, man. Everybody. But I say though that this game is a beautiful game, and I've seen crazier things happen. I've seen the Broncos actually lose out when the Chargers needed to win out to get to the playoffs. I don't know how that was before I was even in the league, but you see it happen. I mean, crazy things have happened, so it's not like it can't be done. It's just hoping and wishing that it happens for us this year.
I legitimately could listen to that guy say anything. I love his voice.
Oh, the best, man, the best. And Tobin, I know Omar had an article, and we've talked about this for the past month now because right around the trade deadline, he wasn't traded, and there were those reports that there's like some sort of agreement, perhaps, with the front office and Calais Campbell. If the Dolphins do lose today, or if they're eliminated, I would be happy to root for Calais Campbell on a title contender. Like the dude has stayed true to competing his ass off every single game at 38 years old for this team. Like I would be happy rooting for him to go get a ring somewhere else.
Not the Bills.
Okay, you're right. Not the Bills and not the Chiefs either. Enough with the Chiefs.
I mean, we've all just been in a Chiefs world, lately anyway. So if he goes to the Chiefs, I guess whatever. Probably make Tyreek Hill furious in some ways. But no, I have no ill will if that's what the Dolphins end up doing. People who are mad about that are the same idiots who are mad at Cam Ward for opting out of the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl. I'm like, this is the dumbest controversy I've ever heard in my life. A guy, how could you do that? I'm like, it's a breakfast commercial. What are you talking about? It's literally all just to get you to eat Pop-Tarts. This is what this is for. It has no honor in college football to win a golden toaster.
Oh, well, the golden toaster was pretty badass. I did want that. I wanted that at the Heck Center in Coral Gables. But
right next to the national championship, a golden toaster. I feel like that has to go in the cafeteria or like the coffee room there for the coaches.
Cristobal's coffee room.
Yeah, like right next to the cafecito maker has to be the golden toaster.
Yeah, Café Bustelo, the bags of Café Bustelo, and then the golden toaster right there with a box of strawberry Pop-Tarts. No, I'm with you. Like anybody mad that Cam Ward didn't play the second half. I mean, asking for Cam Ward, who was it? Albert Breer is like, Cam Ward has to speak to the media to explain to himself, to explain to everybody. Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? The guy didn't even have to play. What? There was no reason for him to play, and there's no reason for Calais Campbell to sit at home if he can go compete somewhere else. Like I'm with you, not the Bills. I'm 100% with you. Bills. Oh, not the Bills. Not the Bills.
If I was a GM and I had to ask somebody, Cam, you really weren't there for your teammates there in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like, I would fire that general manager on the spot for even asking that question. The Pop-Tart Bowl? This is crazy to me.
Crazy.
But yeah, man, I'm with you. Look, I'm happy for Calais. He's been so rock solid for the Dolphins this season. And look, I hope that he's able to squeak into the playoffs for the Dolphins, because he probably, there was that chatter back at the trade deadline since this has all gone on. And the guy who's been on the boots on the ground on all that story has been Omar, since he's brought it up. By the way, you see this tweet by Omar? You see this tweet that he has out on the Tua thing? I'm interested. We're gonna have Omar on in the 3 o'clock hour to ask him, but he smells. He says something doesn't smell right. This is what he said. He said the Dolphins downplayed Tua's hip injury for weeks. Now it's at the point that he can't play in a critical game with a surprise doubtful designation. Something doesn't smell right on this one. Are we talking about the same surgically repaired hip that Tua had some teams off that had Tua off some teams' draft board? Which, by the way, it is. It's the same hip, but what do you think he means by that? That something doesn't smell right.
That they're holding him out, right? I mean, that to me is the only thing I could think of. What are the options here? Like, Tua has downplayed
like an excuse. Like, you think like the Dolphins are they don't feel good about their playoff chances, so you just sit Tua out as an extra caution and just say, hey, we could have gotten to the playoffs. And that's like a cover up for everybody on the hot seat.
Well, look, I understand the Dolphins have an opportunity here, and I'm not trying to downplay the opportunity, but let's be real about what needs to happen here. And Tobin, you seem a bit more optimistic than I am. They need the Colts to lose to the Giants, who have not won a home game this year, I believe. And even if they've won one, it's been one. The Giants stink. They're the worst team in football. Then
True.
You need them at home next week. If they don't lose today, you need them to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home, which is possible, but in a must-win game at home against the Jags and Mac Jones, like I guarantee they're going to be favorites in that game.
Agreed.
But aside from that, you need the Broncos at home in a must-win game. The Broncos are a good team. Like, they're not a great team, but they're not a bad team. They're a good team to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, who are not going to play anybody. I saw Jay Glazer today on Fox, I believe, say that anybody with a hangnail, somebody tweeted this out as well, anybody with a hangnail for the Chiefs basically is not going to play. I think Barry Jackson tweeted that out. So, AKA, you have a stomach ache? Don't worry. Take the week off. There's no risk in putting anybody out there and not having them ready for the playoffs. So, I mean,
well,
the idea, can the Broncos lose to, all the backups in Kansas City? Like, sure, but is it likely? Like, you're literally praying that two heavy favorites next week, the Broncos and the Colts, at home in must-win football games, are going to lose to a really bad Jaguars team and all the backups of Kansas City. Like, it's just not, and you still have to go win 2 road games, which the Dolphins, by all intents and purposes, suck on the road. And whether Tua is healthy or not, haven't proven to you that they can win these 2 games, and we're confident about it. So, like, it's possible, but it's still a long shot. I want everybody to understand that.
Well, let me ask you this though. Does anything change if by 4 o'clock rolls around and the Colts do lose? Let's just say the improbable happens.
Yes.
Does anything change then? Does it, like, if Tua has to play, right? Or like has to give it a go, right? Like, is that what we're waiting on here? Like, Dan, do you think that's what we're waiting on here? You're like, as far as it's concerned?
100%. That's what they're doing. That would be the prudent thing to do. And you can make fun of the Dolphins as much as you want. They make stupid decisions. Chris Greer is a dolt. That's what they're doing. They're waiting and seeing. So they're going to say he's doubtful. And then if the Colts win, okay, he's not going to play. His hip's bad. The Colts lose. You cannot go out there with a garbage ass backup practice squad quarterback when your season's on the line. It's just, the Dolphins aren't that dumb.
If you knew the window, if you knew the window opened at 4 o'clock, the window's open, and he can give you anything, like, because otherwise, why not just rule him out? Like, I don't understand this whole doubtful thing, Like, why not just say he can't play?
You roll him out there for a series. He looks terrible. He looks hobbled. You pull him out and say, we gave it a shot. Fan base says, hey, he did the best he could. The optics are better. Yes, he's going to play if the Colts lose.
Okay, yes. Dan Day is right. By the way, dolt. Excellent use of that word.
Well, I was going to use another word.
You say worst thing that can happen. Well, theoretically, but in reality, the worst thing that can happen is Tua has a really bad hip that he's been downplaying himself. Like he's been telling the trainers, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, until they realize, like, hey, this guy's playing with a severe injury, one that almost ruined his NFL career before it even started.
Yeah.
And he goes out there and he gets tackled and his hip dislocates again. Like that's worst case scenario. So I'm not trying to be dramatic here, and I'm not trying to be, doomsday guy, but that we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa here. Anything's on the table with this guy. Let's be honest.
Anything, and then everything turns into a controversy too. Like, and that's the other thing with it is like everyone, when I think Omar is right to say something doesn't smell right, because it's like it's always with him. It's like it's never just football. It always feels like there's some kind of angle on something. There's something that somebody's got to cover their ass on. All of this is in play when it comes to him. All right, we'll take a break here. Speaking of people's jobs, did Stephen Ross kind of put an answer to one of the big questions out there last week with his behavior post game? We'll get into that. Game Day Uncensored rolls on after this.
Football coverage on
That's 1-800-747-3733.
It's another Game Day Uncensored.
The Dolphins are hoping to rock and roll in Cleveland against the Browns today and keep their positive momentum flowing. Their hopes for the postseason are thin. But Coach Mike says those hopes are what's driving the team.
Shoot, if you're hanging on to a team because you believe in it as players, this is the time that you find success, is in an adverse situation where most may quit. So, it's been a long season, but it was probably the validation of why we've really been putting so much into this team and why we've been fighting for the season to stay alive.
Jordan Brooks agrees and says, if you got to fight, then fight.
For me, it's a mixture of both. I got to see where we at, and to keep the belief alive, and keep the belief going. Like I told the guys before the game last week, if they say if it's 0.1% chance, then we fight for that chance, because nobody knows what can happen. Everybody else outside will be like, oh, they got no chance, but you don't know who's going to win that game or who's going to lose that game and how it's going to shape up.
It's kind of been an odd week of practice for the Dolphins, with Christmas right smack dab in the middle of the week. Are they prepared enough to beat the Browns, an inch closer to a playoff miracle? Of course, other things have to happen too, but hope springs eternal. Time to get into it with Game Day Uncensored, the pregame show for real Miami football fans, with Tobin and Solana, Omar and Beasley, on AM 560 Sports, WQAM, FM 99.9 HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Ed Morse has your back. Ed Morse Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click edmoresawgrasscadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here, 560 WQAM, as we lead you up to the Week 17 kickoff of the Miami Dolphins in Cleveland. We'll talk later this hour to our guy Adam Beasley from Pro Football Network and get his thoughts on where things stand with Tua Tagovailoa, who is doubtful to play today against the Browns, as the Miami Dolphins' playoff hopes, though slim, are still alive thanks to the Denver Broncos losing yesterday to the Cincinnati Bengals. But one of the things that was interesting, Solana, out of last week's win for Miami, Dolphins beat the San Francisco 49ers. There are going to be questions coming out of the season, especially if the Dolphins don't make the playoffs, which odds are right now they don't, of the future of the franchise and where things stand with the head coach, the general manager. Will any changes be made? Now, of course, they just signed a quarterback who, once again, got hurt by the end of the year because whenever he runs and tries to make things happen, he gets hurt. And same thing happened against Buffalo. The same thing happened against Houston. The guy is he's just not built for getting out and escaping in the pocket and making things happen. It's just nothing positive happens out of it. So we're all wondering, is there going to be a reckoning for anybody here? But I think Stephen Ross kind of put an end to that, at least for the head coach last week. Did he not?
I think he 100% did. I don't know if, we should read too much into one moment. And that's fair, but Stephen Ross on the sidelines with Tom Garfinkel, team president, celebrating, fist pumping after the Dolphins win. I mean, it was a little embarrassing, to be honest. Like
that picture.
The picture, it's almost like they're celebrating a division win or something, which they would know nothing about. And here you are, like your season stays alive because you beat Brock Purdy and a depleted Niners team at home. And then you go into the locker room and despite your season, like pretty much hinging on a lot of other things needed to happen, you're going to throw Mike McDaniel a game ball. To me, it was clear as day. Like all these talks about last week, we talked about the hot seat for Mike McDaniel, and we're wondering, are Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel tied together? Like, do they, if one goes, then they both go? And all the conversations that we had, keep Mike McDaniel out of them, because to me, it does not look like an owner that has any sort of ill will towards the head coach.
Here was the sound. This is from the Miami Dolphins locker room after the victory. And Stephen Ross, he's like, hold up. After Mike McDaniel had given out game ball after game ball, here was Stephen Ross, who's like, wait, we have one more.
Man, I'm so proud. That's what.
We got one more ball.
Oh, we do?
One more. Mike McDaniel.
This is why you fight through, okay? On the front end, it seems miserable. This moment, we all know we had to take this moment. Thank you. Captain's got it.
All right, there he is, receiving his game ball for going 7-8. Mike McDaniel, who apparently has just been, I think he just got taken off the hot seat. I don't think there is any hot seat. I don't think you can give some, like, we've heard of, like, people have gotten the fake vote of confidence before. That is an owner staple in sports. Like, they'll say, I'm not, Mike McDaniel's, mark my words, Mike McDaniel's our coach. But giving somebody a game ball is almost better than a vote of confidence, because you did what you maybe you knew was going to be seen. I don't know, but it does seem to answer a lot of questions that Stephen Ross is in no way, shape, or form thinking about firing Mike McDaniel.
Oh, but he knows, like, there's cameras everywhere. He has to know that they post those things. Like, I don't know if Stephen Ross is on Instagram, so
he's 84. You think he knows that?
I mean, come on. You don't think he knows that the Dolphins social team is in there and they're constantly posting videos of the head coach? Like, he has to know that that's commonplace in the National Football League. So to me, that you're right. Like, it is better than just a vote of confidence. It's a public display of, hey, that's my guy. That's the way it felt to me.
It's a PDA.
Public display of, yeah, it is. It's
PDA from Stephen Ross.
It's two teenagers at the movie theater, not even going into the movie theater, but hanging out by the arcade, making out in like the photo booth. It's like total PDA, where he's like, hey, I love this guy. This is my guy. Public display of just like, that is my guy. So everybody who's questioning it, relax. He's going anywhere.
He really is a strange owner, man. I get it that Stephen Ross does spend a lot of money, and that's great. And facilities are top notch, and bully for everybody who gets, great sushi at the cafeteria. But I can't get a pulse on this guy, because you'll have winning seasons, he'll fire you. You'll beat a random ass team, and he's going to extend you. You'll make the playoffs, and he's going to fly across the country to find your replacement. There's no rhyme or reason. Some people you can tell, you're just like, oh, this owner's rats off a ship. I can never tell with Stephen Ross, what makes him tick or what makes him get to the point where he's ready to fire somebody or keep somebody around.
Jags, by the way, leading 3-0. If we're going to do scoreboard watching, Jags with the early lead. But Tobin, who was it last week? Because we talked about this last week. Was it Bees or was it Omar? One of those two told us last week that he likes loyalty over everything. And the big gripe with Brian Flores was not necessarily that they didn't make the playoffs in his final season, because they ended that season on a crazy win streak. They turned the year around. He had multiple winning seasons. The big gripe was that he wasn't loyal, and that he didn't F with Brian Flores, because Flo tried to go behind his back and didn't feel comfortable colluding a little bit, and didn't feel comfortable on the yacht to get Tom Brady. He didn't like that stuff, right?
Right.
And with Chris Greer, and I guess Mike McDaniel, we're seeing it now, he feels comfortable with them. He feels like they're loyal to him. And maybe he puts that at the top of his list of are these my guys or are these not my guys? And production and results aren't the priority. It's, can I trust them? Are they on my team? And clearly, I mean, as far as Chris Greer goes, it's been that way because there's no reason he should still have a job. And with Mike McDaniel, like maybe he genuinely just has a good relationship with Mike McDaniel and he likes him.
I'm sure he does. Mike McDaniel seems like a great hang. He seems like a great dude to be around, but I don't know. It's just you're like, this is the game. You're gonna give him a game. I guess was he not traveling the rest of the way? It's just it was a strange move. Here was Mike McDaniel. His reaction when asked about the media about getting a game ball from Stephen Ross. Here's what the head coach had to say.
I feel so fortunate to have an owner like Mr. Ross who's so supportive, and then on top of that, he's taking the time to consider your journey, regardless of if it's on my mind or not. Just that thoughtfulness and that gesture. I mean, who doesn't want to work for someone like that? It was a really cool moment that I wasn't anticipating, and I just appreciated his thoughtfulness in that regard. But the day was about what we've been working endlessly to have a 3-phase game like that.
Great. That's just strange, man. I just found that.
Are you rats off a ship on Mike McDaniel?
No, I'm not rats off a ship on Mike McDaniel. I like Mike McDaniel. I just find it strange that this owner decides after a win that keeps you alive in the playoffs, but doesn't get you in the playoffs, that he has this move that solidifies, like, that's my guy. I find that strange. It's like there's no rhyme or reason. Like we bring up the Flores thing. It's like Flores has a winning season, but he was still snooping around Sean Payton and Tom Brady trying to bring them in. Joe Philbin beats a Vikings team that has no rhyme or reason. He gives him an extension. Right. I'm just like, what's going on? Like, I can't ever get a pulse on this guy when it comes to what makes him happy and what will genuinely, I guess, anger him.
A lot of people brought that up. I had forgotten about that. You go on the road, you beat the Vikings, your playoff hopes are alive. What's that, 2015, 2014, 2015? And he extends Joe Philbin, extends him. And then next year fires him. Like, this is who he is, man. This is who he is. Like, he picks his moments, and they're bizarre moments. But to go back to your initial question, do you still think, because we felt like the last 3 games really mattered, right? Like Mike McDaniel, whether his job was secure or not, how does he perform? Whether the Dolphins make the playoffs or not, how does he perform in these last 3 games? Do you still think it matters? If the Dolphins, hypothetically, and I don't think it's going to happen, I'm not predicting it, but if the Dolphins were to lose today and lose tomorrow, lose next week, with or without Tua, do you feel like Stephen Ross pulls the plug on Mike McDaniel? Because I don't. Like, that's how much that moment impacted my thought process into this entire thing.
Yeah, I gotta say no. I gotta say, like, if he does, then I guess good. You're just having a moment, and that moment just means the moment, and it doesn't mean for sure it solidifies that he's gonna stay. But I think that kind of means he's staying. I think that means he's not going anywhere. And I didn't really think that he was going anywhere anyway. I don't think anybody's getting fired. That's kind of been my stance the whole time. Is it would have had to get catastrophic for them to fire Mike McDaniel. But I think it's done now. I don't think that I don't think that there's any question he's going to stick around. We'll take a break here on Gameday Uncensored. When we come back, give you some keys to the game as the Dolphins get ready for the Cleveland Browns. Adam Beasley joins us later on this hour. Back after this.
WQAM broadcasting live from the Ed
HD2 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Buick GMC. No matter where you lease your vehicle, bring it to Edmore Sawgrass Buick GMC, your lease return headquarters. It's all a part of being backed by Morse. Click EdmoreSawgrassBuickGMC.com, a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here on 560 WQAM. Brendan Tobin here with you alongside Alejandro Solana, Dan Day, producing our program here today. We're going to get some keys to the game here in just a second, boys, but just to give you a rundown so far of the 1 o'clock slate, the big one we're watching, Colts and Giants scoreless. With about 4.5 minutes left, the Colts are driving. They're in the red zone. So they're knocking on the door there. So hopefully the Giants can hold them to 3, which actually they just did. The Colts kicked a field goal. So they're now up. Indy's up 3-0 on the New York Football Giants. The Bills, who are trying to clinch up the 2nd seed, they're hosting the Jets. They're up 7-0 in that one. Jaguars are up 3-0 on the Titans. Ooh, terrible.
Yeah, but I'm paying close attention to that one just because if the Colts do pull it out today, I want to see, what do the Jags got? What does McCorkle got?
You're trying to see, you're scouting the Jags for hope?
Scouting the Jags, baby. I'm scouting.
All right. The Bucks and Panthers, they're even at 7. Should mention, did you see yesterday, Solana, another piece of Dolphins news? I don't remember if it happened yesterday or Friday, but Shaq Barrett was officially released this week by the Dolphins and re-signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on their practice squad. Were you surprised at all? Because it felt like the Dolphins had kind of made their decision on that they weren't going to let him play football, and then you do him the solid there at the end, and he gets to go to his home team, the team that he won a Super Bowl with.
Yeah, I remember. What was it? A month? Was it a month ago, Tobin, or maybe 3 weeks ago when this all kind of got sparked up again in the news because Shaq Barrett announced he wanted to come back. I remember being passionate about my take, which was, all right, well then play for the Dolphins. If you want to come back, you made a decision, you wanted to sign with the Dolphins, play with the Dolphins. And I remember being happy that the Dolphins were like, no, we're not going to cut you. Sorry, stay retired. And then I saw this report on Friday and I'm just like, whatever, man. I don't care.
Well, it seems over. Yeah. I mean,
that's fine.
Although it was reported today that, or it was decided this week that Bradley Chubb not coming back. They're officially shutting him down for the season. They did not activate him within his window, which is disappointing. But we know Chubb was coming back from a pretty gnarly injury. Do you think there was any callback to that, or he was pretty set? You think on playing for the Bucs, and they're doing Drew Rosenhaus a solid because we know they gotta. We know Greer has a pretty strong relationship with Drew.
That's what it feels like to me. You just do him a solid. You wait a couple weeks so that, all the noise kind of is done. You do it the day after Christmas. Nobody's really paying attention. And it is what it is, right? Both parties move forward. So that's what it felt like to me. You were just kind of doing both of them a solid. And he wasn't really going to help the Dolphins right now anyways. So whatever, man. I'm so dejected from that story on top of everything else. I'm bummed for Bradley Chubb because I genuinely believe he wanted to come back this year, but when we found out what the injury, the extent of the injury was, it almost seemed impossible to return after that. So I'm bummed for him because that's a brutal injury that literally forced him to miss a full season of his career.
It's going to be interesting next year. I mean, the one positive you probably could look forward to next year, if they do keep him, I mean, I'm sure they could just do some cap work with him. But if they do keep him, to have, the season that Chop Robinson's having on top of Jalen Phillips, on top of Bradley Chubb, we knew that the pass rusher was going to be an issue this year. It just was when you knew those two injuries were there. Jalen Phillips beats science, but then science is sabotaged by Jordan Poyer's head. And so that all led to this kind of thing where you had only this young rookie, but man, he has looked incredible for the Dolphins. So I do think the defense does have some potential for growth next year with all the bad sides on this and all the questions on offense. I do think the defense is kind of setting itself up for some good stuff next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like we've criticized the defense a ton this year. No takeaways, a lack of, consistency in getting sacks and all that stuff. But like, man, they're one of the top 10 defenses in the NFL. Like that, you can't just brush that aside. You can't just immediately say, oh, the numbers don't matter. They haven't been fantastic. The thing is, you just want to look when you're looking ahead at next season, when we get there, right? When we do get there, what doesn't need to be rebuilt? And the defensive line, if Bradley Chubb ends up coming back, and hopefully he's healthy, if JP's healthy, and you feel great about Zach Sealer and Chop, like, okay, that doesn't need to be rebuilt because you feel like the secondary outside of Jalen Ramsey, you're kind of looking around saying, where do we go from here? You literally have to go most likely find 2 new safeties, another corner if Kendall Fuller doesn't end up coming back. So like at least you have one part of that defense that you feel can remain intact.
Well, let's say that one thing that does have to probably be restructured is that offensive line. So let's get to our keys to the game here. Brought to you by Doral Hyundai. At Doral Hyundai, choose from over 1,300 new Hyundai miles in inventory like the Tucson, the Sonata, and the Palisade. Remember, when it comes to Hyundai, the great deals are at Doral Hyundai. We mentioned this earlier in the show with the game recap from last week, but Liam Eichenberg, Isaiah Wynn, they split some snaps. Teron Armstead, he was back looking good. Mike McDaniel open to him returning, which was interesting. He can't seem to quit Teron Armstead. I don't know what the likelihood is that Teron wants to keep playing football, but man, if they are not going to have Tua today, I mean, the run game just becomes that much more essential, Solana. So, like, do you feel like what they did last week is sustainable, or do you feel like it was kind of a one and done? Do you feel like the Dolphins did fix some of their issues?
No, I think it's sustainable, but this isn't cakewalk today going up against the Cleveland front four. So, I mean, you hope it's sustainable, but there's variables. What does Teron look like today? Does he have loss of function in his knee, or does he look healthy? What does Kendall Lamb look like today? I think there's variables to all this stuff. You can't just assume, oh, all those guys are out there, it's going to be perfect how it was a week ago. You just can't assume. But I feel a lot more comfortable with them out there, even if they're not 100%, than I do without them out there, Tobin. So we'll see. We'll see how it looks today. But the Dolphins, because of the rain and because of Tua's status, you feel like are going to have to move the ball on the ground to be successful today. And you just hope that offensive line can create that push necessary to do it.
Yeah, they finally got off the schneid with a century mark on the run game last week, which was nice. Devon Achane was awesome. He looked really, really good, and especially that dagger run that he had at the end of the game. Great job by him. They're going to need that today. What do you got? Hands up, Drew Lock?
Malik Neighbors, touchdown for the Giants. They're up.
So all right, I like it. I feel pathetic, but I like it right now. Giants are up 7-3 on the Indianapolis Colts in the first quarter. No doubt the organization is scoreboard watching that one to see what the status of their quarterback will be for today. We'll talk about it with our guy, Adam Beasley from Pro Football Network. He joins us next.
Football coverage on
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Chevrolet. Edmore Sawgrass Chevrolet is your lease return headquarters. Click EdmoreSawgrassChevrolet.com and see how you're backed by Morse when it comes to returning your lease. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here, 560 WQAM, and it is that time of the show where we check in with our guy, Adam Beasley from Pro Football Network. Bees joining us here as we will dive into more of this Dolphins game as the Dolphins are getting set for the Cleveland Browns. We, of course, are awaiting the official status of Tua Tagovailoa. Bees, how are you?
Probably better than Dolphins fans collectively. I'm having a great day. They probably aren't having such a fantastic Sunday right now.
I mean, you got hope right now. Malik Neighbors just put the Giants up 7-3. How surprising is what happened yesterday with the whole Tua becoming doubtful and what he's dealing with? Because I know it took me by surprise. I thought that he was going to be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, particularly because he didn't give any indications during the course of the week that this is something that he thought was going to bother him. I mean, even, I think Frank Smith said basically, December bumps and bruises, things like that. But you got more, kind of peeled back more of the onion. Tracy Wolfson said she talked to him pregame last week, and he said that, he was going to try to give it a go, but hopefully there's not any setbacks. Pretty clear he's had some setbacks in the last 72 hours. I don't know how it went from Thursday, him being okay or good enough to go. He talked to the media, suggested he'd be okay, to Friday night into Saturday, it really flaring up. So there are two things to worry about. Obviously, the short term, how does this impact a Dolphins team that is in obvious must-win mode? And long term, what's going on with Tua's hip? The same hip, it sounds like, that he had that catastrophic injury back in 2019. He suggested, again, this is all third hand. We're getting this from Tracy Wolfson, who talked to him in the production meeting before their Week 16 game. He suggested it's not the same injury, might be the same hip, but it's a different injury. Regardless, that's a massive red flag for me. That is a huge concern long term. He's a guy that's already had 4 diagnosed concussions and now 2 injuries to the same hip. We'll see if this one needs any kind of repair, potential surgery. If you have 2 surgeries at the same hip and 4 concussions before your 27th birthday, that does not bode well for the long-term viability of a player.
Bees, something that Tobin and I were kind of just pondering. Do you think the outcome of this Colts-Giants game would impact any decision of him going in? In other words, if the Colts do end up winning today, now the Dolphins next week, even if they won today, right, they would have to win next week against the Jets, and they would still need the Colts to lose at home against the Jaguars, and they would still need the Broncos to lose to the Chiefs at home against what we're expecting to be the backups for Kansas City. Do you think the outcome of this game has any sort of impact on whether or not Tua's going to end up going today?
If it does, they should all be fired. Like, honestly, if they're making those decisions on this Rube Goldberg attempt to make the playoffs with a guy you just guaranteed a ton of money to, he's under contract with significant guaranteed money next year and beyond. No, that's idiocy. It's complete lunacy to have to, worrying about what, Joe Flacco does. Okay. I mean, that's nuts. If Tua doesn't play today, it's because he's not physically capable of playing. It's not some Machiavellian scheme where, hey, maybe we're trying to tank for a better playoff spot, the draft spot. All these theories I'm reading online, people are nuts. Okay. And again, I get the frustration of being a Dolphins fan. I totally get it. It's been 25 years in the wilderness, and you've been on this roller coaster with Tua for so long. I totally get all that. At the end of the day, they have an investment they need to protect. Okay. And if that investment believes he's healthy enough to go without risking serious injury, I mean, that's the thing. We're not just talking about pain threshold. If it was just pain management, Tua would play. Okay. Clearly, they're worried about this being something that's beyond Week 17 of the 2024 season. That's the only way you sit this guy in this moment, because no matter what happens in that Colts game, they're going to be alive going into Week 18 if they win, right? They'll still need more help if the Colts wins as opposed to lose, but they will have a path if they win this game today in week 18. Again, it's a very narrow path that's not particularly likely at all, especially since the Chiefs have 0 to play for in that Broncos game. Like, you're going to be crossing your fingers for Carson Wentz to come through for you. Okay, that's where we are. So that's how absurd it would be for the Dolphins to take any short-term consideration into if this is a potential long-term deal with Tua. And that to me suggests that there's something deeper here. So hoping for the best for him, but look, win or lose today, they have to have a better plan at quarterback in 2025. They absolutely cannot go into the season with the likes of Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle as your options. You just cannot do that with have any chance to win consistently in this league.
Well, speaking of Snoop, I guess the hopes are going to probably lay in his hands for today. The weather looks miserable in Cleveland. I'm seeing the pictures. I mean, it looks like hell on earth. I mean, rainy, winds from anywhere from 18 to gusts to 40, ESPN saying for this game. They seem like they found some kind of comfort with the run game last week, Bees. Like, is that the formula for you, or do you feel like you let Snoop use his legs? Like, what do you think we could expect from Huntley today?
I think the key is 14 points. You get to 14 points, you're going to win this game. As crazy as it sounds, because DTR is a bad quarterback. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the National Football League. They're on their backups, running backs. I mean, they've got real issues. I mean, outside of Jerry Jeudy, there's nobody on that offense that scares you at all. So the idea of the Browns putting up a bunch of points, not going to happen. They've just got to figure out a way to get to 14 points, which is a challenge with a backup quarterback. I mean, you go back and you look at those 4 games that Tua was out. Getting over 10 points was a struggle for these guys, okay? So they're going to have to run the ball. Like, to me, you drafted Jalen Wright for moments like this, right? Your big, physical, larger back that can do a bunch of things for you running the football. I don't know if you're seeing 28 carries from Devon Achane, if that's a smart thing. Certainly Mostert's going to have a role, maybe Jeff Wilson. I think it should be like an all-hands-on-deck type situation. I really do. I think they should have 4 running backs they use in this game, and they all get 6 to 8 carries at least. And whoever the hot hand is, that's who you go with in the fourth quarter. But if they go into this thinking Achane, sink or swim is our guy, that might not work out very well for them.
What was your biggest takeaway last week from the fact that the Dolphins were able to get the run game going? Was it just as simple as, hey, Teron and Kendall Lamb were out there? Teron looked, more than serviceable. He was good last week. He clearly had mobility in his knee. Or was it just the fact that there was less Liam Eichenberg? Or like what was, your biggest takeaway from the fact that the Dolphins finally got over the century mark?
Yeah, no, I think it's all the above. Certainly having a 50-yard run really juices those numbers. So that
for sure,
that helped. One big run helped in a big way. But yeah, I think they may have found something in Isaiah Wynn. We'll see how much he plays this week for sure. Having those 2 tackles back, you go and think about the tackles who started in that Texans game. Like, I mean, believe me, the Dolphins have plenty of reasons to bang on them. I mean, we spent the last 17 weeks crushing them in a lot of different ways. They're also so snake bit, man. I mean, of all the games to go into with your number 4 and 5 offensive tackles starting, it's against the Houston Texans that rush the passer as well as anybody in football, right? I mean, they're totally snake bit, like as unlucky as humanly possible. And then fast forward a week, you don't have Tua going into a must-win game against a team you should obliterate, by the way. Like, the Browns are so bad. You should this should be a 3-score win if Tua's playing. It really should. They're that bad. And now you're, on your cuticles because you're worried Snoop Huntley can get you 12 first downs. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. They're really unlucky.
Is it fair to question what the hell took so long with Isaiah Wynn? I mean, he's on the sideline for 2 games before he finally got in the other day. Like, why is it stubbornness for Mike McDaniel? Is it, you're definitely, around the team a lot more. Is it the fact that Isaiah Wynn maybe just wasn't comfortable going in? I mean, he suited up for some of those games. He's just standing on the sideline. What took so long to make that move?
Are you saying that the Dolphins may have stuck with Liam Eichenberg too long? I've never heard that complaint in the last 4 years.
It was so great. Just less of him was so great for me. I loved it.
Yeah. I think there's some stubbornness in the organization, and there's, McDaniel. And I think part of the reason there's all these conspiracy theories about Tua's health flying around is because McDaniel on the record very clearly does not want to rush guys back, right? And, could Bradley Chubb have played this year? My guess is if they were, what are they? They're 7-8 now. If they were 10-5 instead of 7-8, Bradley Chubb would not have been deactivated for the season. We would have seen him at least on the active roster, maybe not playing this week, but they would not have shut him down with the hopes of using him in the playoffs. But I do think that this is a team that not always, but under McDaniel has really gone out of its way to give guys an extra week. And I think that might be what it was with Isaiah Wynn.
You agree with this theory though, Bees? Because look at the Bengals right now, right? Like the Bengals are kind of have that feeling of nobody wants to face them, and they need more stuff to happen to get in than the Dolphins do. And it kind of feels like the Dolphins are waving the white flag, but they are, they're still throwing up some caution to this whole situation, even with a chance. Like I understand it's not a great chance, but you're also talking about not great teams needing things to happen. And who knows, like football's weird and weather's bad. And it kind of just feels like the Dolphins are like, we know that we really don't have a shot, where I don't think Cincinnati's feeling that way.
Yeah, because Cincinnati's good. I mean, seriously, it's that simple. You play the Cincinnati Bengals, like that offense is as good as anybody in the National Football League. I mean, they're really good. If they get 2 or 3 stops a game, they're going to win the game. They're just that good on offense. So, yeah, I mean, let me ask you this. Who do you think would have a better chance of going on the road and winning a playoff game? Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, or injured Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins? That's no one believes in this team because they've given no one any reason to believe in it.
Totally fair.
That is
totally fair. But this is supposed to be I understand the logic of us saying that. I thought in the inside of a building, you're supposed to fight until the end, and you're supposed to be what did Jordan Brooks say in our open salon? If there's a 0.001 chance, you got a chance, and
right.
It just rings hollow because it's no. I mean, there's teams that believe in it, and then there's teams that they say they believe in it, but we're also talking about Calais Campbell contingency plans after this.
Well, yeah, but that won't happen until they're eliminated. I mean, I totally, guys, they were 2-6. Okay, I mean, they were 2-6. The fact that they're a win away from having a chance in Week 18, that's still pretty impressive because they were so far out of it. And I think it also speaks to how craptastic the middle of the AFC is and how just awful their schedule is. I mean, they're people were already making excuses. Oh, if Tua misses 6 games. Do you hold a losing record against Mike McDaniel? Absolutely. I hold it more against Chris Greer, but I 100% hold it against these guys because if you can't find a way to get to 9 wins with the talent they have and believe they have on this roster, even if Tua misses a third of the season or whatever, you're a bad team. You're a poorly coached team. Things are bad because Titans, Colts, Jets twice. Certainly they're seeing the Browns far from their best today. I mean, they needed the peanut punch to survive the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, they're a bad football team. They last 2 years they were the best of the mediocres, right? I think the playoffs bore that out. They were the best of the average teams, and that was good enough to get to enough wins to get in the playoffs. They're not even that anymore. They're
if you do football math, like they do MMA math, this guy lost to that guy, the Dolphins got handled by the Texans, who just got worked by Baltimore. The Texans are the lowest rung of good team, and the Dolphins didn't look like they belonged on the same field with them.
Yeah, I mean the Texans are what the Dolphins were last year. That's exactly what they are, and then you saw the gulf between 2024 Dolphins and with the 2023 Dolphins, where it's a clear step back. So this team needs. I mean, we've talked about it, and again, I don't think even winning out should save Chris Greer's job. If they are gauging the 6-year GM run of Chris Greer and how these last 2 games go, just disband the franchise now. Okay, there's no information that you can learn from these last 2 games that should in any way influence your thoughts on how the future of this franchise should be run. Okay, it would certainly feel great for them to somehow, after all they've overcome, get into the playoffs. They're going to lose by 40 in the first round. Okay, it just is what it is.
Probably to Buffalo.
Yeah, probably in Buffalo. They will get absolutely obliterated in probably 7-degree weather. Okay, I'm sorry that's not good enough. Year 6 of a rebuild. This is year 6 of this. It's not even all right, Greer had them closed 3 years ago, then started from scratch when McDaniel took over. No, McDaniel was supposed to continue the upward ascent, build on what Brian Flores has done. Are they any closer now? This is a crazy question, but it's the truth. Are they any closer now to winning the Super Bowl than they were in late 2019, the end of the tank year? Are they any closer?
Not even a little bit.
Nope.
So yeah, if Chris Greer saves his job because they beat Dorian Thompson-Robinson and the corpse of Aaron Rodgers, I would, if I was a Dolphins fan, I'd just say, catch me when there's a wholesale change, because that's the next time I'll pay attention.
So are you not expecting, if the Dolphins win today, Chris Greer to get a game ball from owner Stephen Ross? Because what Tobin and I were talking about it, and look, Bees, I mean, last week with you, we talked about how important are these 3 games for Mike McDaniel specifically, because I think I'm on the same page with you and Chris Greer. Like I'm looking at the results of 6 years of him calling the shots, and it's not good enough. But Mike McDaniel, we didn't know, is his timeline attached to Chris Greer? If one goes, does the other go? Like how is the owner looking at it? And then all of a sudden they win what's going to end up being a meaningless game against the San Francisco 49ers, who are depleted, by the way. And here comes Stephen Ross, fist pumping on the sideline. He's stopping a team meeting to throw Mike McDaniel a game ball. To me, and I don't know what you took away from it, but to me, that was a public display of, that's my guy. I like him. Yeah. So like, are we no longer expecting, no matter what happens the rest of this season, Mike McDaniel's job to be in jeopardy?
No, I think he'll get one more year, to prove that he was the guy from 2 years ago, not the guy from today. What's really like, there's so much, like every single year we speculate from the outside and we have 0.1% of the information as to what's actually going on. Like no one knew the extent of the dysfunction between Flo and Greer and Flo and Tua, whatever that was 3 years ago this week, whatever, we knew that things weren't great, but we didn't know as bad as it was. So we have no idea if Mike's going to Tom Garfinkel, Mike's going to Brandon Shore, Mike's going to Steve Ross. I'm like, guys, you see what I got? You see what I'm working with on the offensive line, guys. You see who my backup quarterback is, guys. You see who we have as our starting strong safety, who gets trucked by wide receivers. Okay, you see the decisions. Again, I'm sure Mike had a big say in personnel, and if he comes back in 25, which seems pretty clear, and they make a GM change, if I was Steve Ross, I'd say, all right, you're dialing it back there, Wonder Boy. All right, you're going to call awesome plays. You're going to make sure all these, the talent that you're given is maximized, and you can tell philosophically whoever's picking the players, the kind of players you want. You're not picking the players, man. You're not. That's going to be on the GM. And if Mike's okay with that, which I'm sure it will be, because does he want to go back to being a glorified quarterbacks coach, the San Francisco 49ers? Is that what he wants to do? No, he's got what he's called his dream job. He's going to acquiesce to that. So I do think that it's time for Steve Ross, Tom Garfinkel, Ross's daughters, if they have a say in this, people who are making the decisions for this franchise, to say enough's enough, and we have to have a standard of accountability here.
It's Adam Beasley, Pro Football Network. Go follow him, follow his work. Thanks for the time, man. Appreciate you.
All right, guys, enjoy the game.
There you go. Adam Beasley. We'll take a break. We'll get you updated right now. It is looking good for the Dolphins right now. The Giants, it's funny, Solana? The Giants fans are freaking out right now on Twitter because they're so mad because this is going to ruin draft position, but they're up 14-3 now. The Colts are driving. The Colts are looks like they're about on the 11 of New York.
There was just a scary injury, so like the game is kind of screeched to a halt. Yeah.
Who's
like
hurt? A Giant or a Colt?
I believe a Giant. But everybody's down on one knee. They're tough. They're bringing out the stretcher right now. So, yeah.
But New York is up 14-3 right now in the second quarter. So they are getting what they need from Drew Lock and the Giants right now. Crazy as it is. So we'll take a break. We'll get you caught up with everything going around the league and the NFL and the Dolphins' health status. We're keeping an eye on social media for any updates. We should get the official update this upcoming hour on Tua's playing status for today. We'll take a break. Back with more on Game Day Uncensored after this.
Football coverage on WQ.
WQAM Miami, WPOW HD2 Miami, WKIS HD2 Boca Raton, an Odyssey sports station.
Powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys.
Call 1-800-747-FREE.
That's 1-800-747-3733.
It's another Game Day Uncensored.
The Dolphins are hoping to rock and roll in Cleveland against the Browns today and keep their positive momentum flowing. Their hopes for the postseason are thin. But Coach Mike says those hopes are what's driving the team.
Shoot, if you're hanging on to a team because you believe in it, as players, this is the time that you find success is in an adverse situation where most may quit. So, it's been a long season, but it was probably the validation of why we've really been putting so much into this team and why we've been fighting for the season to stay alive.
Jordan Brooks agrees and says, if you got to fight, then fight.
For me, it's a mixture of both. I got to see where we at, and to keep the belief alive, and keep the belief going. Like I told the guys before the game last week, if they say if it's 0.1% chance, then we fight for that chance, because nobody knows what can happen. Everybody else outside would be like, oh, they got no chance, but you don't know who's going to win that game or who's going to lose that game and how it's going to shape up.
It's kind of been an odd week of practice for the Dolphins, with Christmas right smack dab in the middle of the week. Are they prepared enough to beat the Browns, an inch closer to a playoff miracle? Of course, other things have to happen too, but hope springs eternal. Time to get into it with Game Day Uncensored, the pregame show for real Miami football fans, with Tobin and Solana, Omar and Beasley. On AM 560 Sports, WQAM, FM 99.9 HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Edmore's has your back. Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click EdmoreSawgrassCadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, man. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. It is Game Day Uncensored here on 560 WQAM. We are getting ready for Dolphins and Browns. But in the meanwhile, keeping an eye, like a bunch of nervous chameleons, on Giants and Colts. And let me tell you something right now. Malik Neighbors, he's keeping the Dolphins' chances alive.
He's balling. He's balling right now, Tobin.
Balling right now, dude. The Giants are on the doorstep. They were able to hold Indy to a field goal, so they're still up 14-6, but knocking on the door of at least a chip shot to get in to extend their lead back to where it was, Solana. But the Giants, who, I'm sure any Giants fan right now is furious because they may lose the number one pick right now to the New England Patriots. They right now they're just sitting here and dealing with all they have to deal with as they're beating up the Colts right now. Colts can't stop them.
Hey, you had mentioned that Giants fans were upset because of their draft pick. Could you imagine winning this game and not getting Cam Ward because of it?
Yeah. I guess your only saving grace is the Patriots don't need a quarterback also, but yeesh. That's a rough feeling. That is that's something they're gonna have to deal with, I guess, when it comes to it. But that's crazy, man. They're killing it right now. The Dolphins are about to go out there with Snoop Huntley.
The thing is that they're 0-8 at home. They were kind of due, right? They were kind of due.
They probably were due, and the Colts aren't good. The Colts aren't a good team, and I can't believe the Dolphins lost to them.
You brought it up with Bees in the last segment. The Texans like we saw what they really are when going up against a good team in the Ravens. Oh my God, is that team just so mediocre?
Yeah.
To score 2 points? 2 points?
Yep. It really is like, it's a humbling thing as a Dolphins fan. And Bees is so right when he says, whatever happens, if the Dolphins are able to work their way into the playoffs, they're going to get clobbered, especially if it's against Buffalo on the road. We already know, like, this is like Beauty and the Beast, tale as old as time. Like, we know exactly what's going to happen. But, like, look, man, what else are we supposed to root? Like, what are you going to root for? The 14th pick, the 15th pick? It's the only thing that is left to hold on to for your last 2 Sundays is, hey, maybe they could get into this by some chance, by some miracle. So, in the meanwhile, we see if the Giants can pull this off.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're joking about their chance. And I just sent you, Pro Football Talk is saying that it's very likely that the Chiefs will sit Patrick Mahomes and other starters for Week 18, which we expected. So yeah, like, the chance is not great. This is the longest of long shots. But bro, like, if you have a game that technically still counts, you're rooting for your team to win,
of course,
aren't you?
Yeah, of course. The only is if you're not knocking on the door of getting a prodigious number 1 pick, like, of course you're rooting for your team to win. Like, there's no other reason to not do that other than you're just fed up with them and you just don't want to see them anymore. But no, of course you're rooting for them. That's why it's like, it's interesting. I see that as the Dolphins are, let me just double check Twitter, but the last I saw Chris Perkins, who's boots on the ground in Cleveland, he's they have a tarp issue going on right now. Yeah. And like, they're pulling the tarp off, but he was saying about 15 minutes ago, this is about the time Tua warms up and he's not out there. So we'll see. He does, but Jalen Waddle is out there warming up. Doesn't mean he'll play. We'll know that probably by the end of this hour about who's actually going to play. As the Giants just go up 20-6 with a touchdown.
Oh my God.
Wan'Dale Robinson with a touchdown from Drew Lock. 3 touchdowns in the first half for New York. They are absolutely steamrolling right now, the Indianapolis Colts. How about that?
Will Manso is losing his mind on Twitter, by the way. Will Manso is from Local 10, a massive Giants fan. And he's like, after blowing a chance at Daniels or May last season, nothing would surprise me.
It's incredible. This is incredible. New York Giants are sitting here steamrolling the Colts, and we're sitting here hoping like hell that Tua can have a miracle performed on his hip. Unbelievable.
Hey, where do you stand, by the way? Now we've had a couple hours to kind of marinate on this. I thought, Bees' perspective on this situation is like, sit Tua. Why risk throwing Tua out there and risk jeopardizing the person that, you made all this, you threw all this money at. And he's downplaying any idea that this is the Dolphins perhaps trying to get a better draft pick. But I'm seeing a lot of people speculate that that's what this is. Like, the Dolphins realizing there's no chance at them making the playoffs, and that they're just saying, all right, let's shut down Tua so that we can have a better opportunity to draft higher. Like, where are you on that? Because I don't think it's a draft. I mean, I don't think it's a draft thing. I think it's what we said. I think that the Dolphins, the only reason I truly believe, Solana, I know that B says like fire them if they have this mentality, but the only reason I think Tua is not ruled out already, and this is all going to be moot in, what is it, 45 minutes, we'll know. Right. But the only reason I think he's not ruled out is because we don't quite know. If the Dolphins have the window open today by the New York Giants, there's just, I just think for Tua, he's going to do everything he can to get out on that field, because he already feels like the season and his concussion, he already feels like it's his fault. He already feels like the reason they're in this position is because of what happened to him on Thursday night against Buffalo. And, the other one was like the one that happened against Houston wasn't as bad. I mean, it's not like he like threw his head into somebody. He had a giant person throw himself into a side. Like, it's a dangerous game, but dude, he can say all he wants. I don't hear this stuff. Of course he does. And of course that he's going to do everything he can
to try and push to get through this. But I think that the Dolphins put that doubtful out there. First of all, mind you, the report came out before we had the games yesterday. So if the Dolphins would have been eliminated yesterday, of course he's not going to play. No shot. But now you're looking and you're like, oh my God, if the Giants really get this improbable win here, you got to leave the window open, dude. You have to. Unless Beasley's right, unless he physically can't walk and he can't go. But if he can give you anything, I think the quarterback's going to try. I think he's going to try and get out there, but we'll see. We'll know soon.
Not that I'm happy about the Bills winning, but I mean, they're in the playoffs anyways. They have Aaron Rodgers in hell, Tobin. In hell. They just sacked him for a safety. He's already thrown an interception, and there was a 4th and 1 play. They're on the Bills' 27-yard line. Instead of taking the field goal, they try to go for it. They get stopped. I see Aaron Rodgers look at the coach, throw his hands up, walk off the field upset. Aaron Rodgers is in hell. He's going out sad.
Great. He's going out. Did you see the report that was out there today too? That Garrett Wilson will demand a trade if Aaron Rodgers is brought back. That's tremendous. You think oh my God, I'm gonna get to play with a generational quarterback, and the guy's like, if that old man's back, I'm not. Get me out of here. I want no part of it. No part of it. Jeez, crazy, what a crazy time we're in right now. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Tyreek Hill with some interesting comments after last week's win over the 49ers regarding his season. He had some pretty big drops. People were furious with Tyreek Hill. Should have been probably an easier game for the Miami Dolphins. So we'll get into what's going on with the Cheetah on the other side as Gameday Uncensored comes back after this.
WQAM broadcasting live from the Ed Moore
to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Ed Morse has your back. Ed Morse Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click edmoresawgrasscadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here, 560 WQAM. Take you guys up until the 4 o'clock kick from Cleveland. Dolphins and Browns getting going. Let's get to our player to watch here. Brought to you by your Southern Lexus dealers. The Lexus December to Remember sales event is why you stay on the nice list. Find yours and get offers on select models, but only for a limited time now through January 2nd, and make it a December to remember. Solana got some bad news from one Omar Kelly. He tweets out a picture right now from the Dolphins warm-ups, and he says, so Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson are the only QBs on the field for warm-ups for the Dolphins. Dolphins were serious about Tua's doubtful status.
Yeah.
Oh,
Damn.
Brutal.
Maybe they're just so confident they can beat the Browns with Dorian Thompson-Robinson with their backup. And then next week, Tua will be healthy to play for a possible game that gets them into the playoffs.
Maybe, Dan. Maybe.
I'm staying positive. I believe in this
That
team.
is a positive. That is a positive. I mean, like, they could have Zach Sealer come out here and just wreck shop against DTR, and Chop Robinson has been on fire. They hit that porpoise parlay last week, Solana.
He did. That was a good call by you, man. Great call by you.
I mean, like, so maybe Dan has a point. You know, you get this one, and then you have two already. I mean, you know, listen, it's not like conditions two is usually good in anyway, rainy and windy.
I don't know if it's going to be much better next week in New York, Tobin. First week of January. I mean,
I know,
but I like Dan, and I'm not diminishing what you're saying. Like, I'm happy you believe in this team, but like, what makes you believe in Snoop Huntley? The fact that they scored, was it 12 points or 16 points in the only win that they had without Tua this season? Was it 16, Tobin, against New England? I mean,
yeah, and they had that was a monster. No, they lost. They beat New England 15 points, 15. And that was a monster running performance. That was a game that lost Devon Achane to a concussion too, and Mostert probably had his best game of the year.
Yeah, so like, I'm not saying that they don't have confidence in him, but I just don't know where that confidence is coming from, because we've seen what this team looks like without Tua Tagovailoa, and you know, confidence is not necessarily something that I feel good about saying watching those 4 games with whoever it was, whether it was Tim Boyle, whether it was Skylar, or whether it was Snoop Huntley. Like, the team looked dreadful on offense.
Well, the thing is, like, look, the good things that you have, whether they have Jalen Waddle or not, in that game, they won. Tyreek Hill had a pretty good game. Jonnu Smith had a pretty good game. Remember, they had a lot of weird stuff going on in that game, too. They missed a field goal. They botched a field goal. The game probably should have been more of a yes, they only won by a heel eventually, but like, they probably should have been in a much better position to put that game away. You got to think that he's been around the team. You got to think he's got to be a little bit better, right? I mean, I know I said this about Skylar Thompson for 3 years, but you got to feel like the guy's got to be a little bit more on the page with everybody else, right?
Yes. The thing with Skylar, though, and look, I was one of these people that got duped by Skylar Thompson. I saw him in a playoff game look competent. I'm not saying he played great, but the Dolphins were in that game until late in the fourth quarter. And Skylar Thompson made a couple throws. He had a touchdown pass. Like, it was competent. So with Snoop Huntley, I mean, look, 3 points against Seattle, and that was Skylar Thompson. 12 points with Snoop Huntley against the Tennessee Titans and Mason Rudolph. 15 points against the Patriots, and you won on a technicality. And then 10 points with Snoop Huntley.
It was bad.
And you lost to the Colts on the road. So now we're banking on, okay, he's been in the system since, what was that, week 8 or whatever, week 7. He's been in the system now 10 more weeks. He's been able to take snaps, learn Mike McDaniel's offense, and all of that. Like you can talk me into it if you want, but the reality is he was on the IR for 4 of those weeks. So was he really taking snaps? No. And Mike McDaniel's offense is so complex. Now you're on the road in conditions that aren't necessarily favorable for a quarterback, and you had a guy who was here 3 years who clearly didn't learn Mike McDaniel's offense well enough to go out and play one game and look competent again. So it's hard. It's hard for me to say, okay, yeah, he's been here 10 more weeks. He's going to have a better grasp on the offense. Like, sure, but does that mean that he's going to be able to execute this offense on the road? I don't know.
The Colts, by the way, have just gotten to the end zone. Jonathan Taylor with a 3-yard touchdown run. We'll see if they go for 1 or 2 here, but they have struck back, working their way back into this.
Yeah.
Speaking of players to watch, Tyreek Hill made some interesting comments this week, Solana, about how he's missing reps in practice. I mean, Tyreek Hill is definitely not look like the same guy. Definitely not like the same guy as last year. Targets are way down from last year. Remember, last year was all about Cheetah 2K. That was what everybody was aiming for. He's got 834 yards this year, so 1,000 is not even a guarantee for him, which I think has only happened once in a season that he's played fully. Pretty crazy. But here he was. This was him after the game talking about, he feels that he's missed too much practice this year, and that's part of the reason why he's not having as good a year.
On the deep ball, it was tipped by the defensive back. And on the other one, it's just, again, missing those valuable reps with the quarterback. One thing I learned from Coach Reed whenever I was in Kansas City, I was blessed to be able to play under, such a great head coach is, you just can't show up on Sunday. You got to be able to, prepare yourself, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday. And then when it's Sunday, it's easy, so once again, us missing those valuable reps, because when it's live speed, everything's moving so fast, and, we need those valuable reps whenever it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So
that was Cheetah after the Dolphins beat the 49ers. What'd you make of that? So I thought it was a pretty interesting comments from him. You feel like he's, cranking up the excuse machine a little bit for a down season for him? Do you buy into what he's saying? What do you make of what Cheetah had to say?
A lot. First of all, loves talking about Kansas City now. Throwing some major props at Andy Reid. I don't know if that makes you feel any sort of way, Tobin, but it does make me think that Cheetah he's not happy. He's not as happy as he was with Miami as maybe 4 months ago. And I think part of it are the fact that the targets are down and the production is down this season. And look, he's as much to blame for that as the Miami Dolphins are. But I also think the wrist injury comes into play here. A lot of people were really pissed off at Cheetah in that Houston game, and rightly so. Like, he wasn't good. 3 interceptions that Tua threw, all 3 were targets to him, and we know at least one of those, he just ran the wrong route. Like, he just went over the top of a linebacker or a safety rather than running underneath the DB, which is where he needed to be. But, hey, he's talking about you have to be prepared, you have to be out there, get the reps in week after week, not just on Sunday, but at practice. And this is an organization that I don't think really prioritizes that, truthfully. I mean, their best offensive lineman doesn't practice.
Nope.
And Mike McDaniel, as Beasley pointed out, we know this, he's not interested in rushing players back. Like, they're fine with their best players, their stars, missing practice and missing those reps Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday if it means they're going to be available on Sunday, which I think most people would be. So I don't know. Like, I don't make too much about that specifically, because we know how this organization operates, and they're cool with throwing a bunch of money at guys who have either been injury prone or who aren't available every single week.
I always got to be careful with this stuff because I never know what's real on the internet. But apparently on his Snapchat, he was posting Charger stuff. Was that real?
Cheetah?
That's what the people were saying on Twitter.
Tyreek's using Snapchat still, and
He uses
2024?
Snapchat. That's what makes it weird. Yeah, he still uses Snapchat.
Him and DJ Khaled are the only people still posting the Snapchat.
He's still posting Snapchat. He apparently posted like a googly eyes emoji. It was a report, and it had said the Los Angeles Chargers are co-favorite to trade for Tyreek Hill if Miami moves on from him. And supposedly somebody had just put he had just put on the Snapchat, the little googly eyes emoji. So,
well, I'll tell you what, man. If the Dolphins do end up trading him, there's two organizations you cannot trade him to. The Buffalo Bills, because, oh my God, no. And the Los Angeles Chargers, because no matter what, Tua and Justin Herbert are going to be looked at constantly
for sure
for the rest of their careers. And if you trade him to Buffalo, well, you're a dummy trading him into your division. That's never going to happen. You trade him to Los Angeles and Justin Herbert now and Cheetah go to the playoffs and win a playoff game. I mean, that would look real bad for Tua Tagovailoa. Really, really bad.
Yeah, I can understand why. I don't know, man. Look, I got to give Cheetah credit for the fact that he is going through an injury. I don't think he looks less fast. It's really the drops that have been problematic for him this year, or not seeming like he's just as crisp as he was last year. And I don't know what the injury plays. I don't know what that injury plays a part in that. There's no doubt that he's playing in discomfort. And with everybody who isn't out there, like Jalen Waddle missing games and Tua's missing games, he's trying to gut through something and putting off a surgery for something. I don't know what part the detainment had to do in week one, if this aggravated some stuff, because he was talking about his knee also bothering him. But it is inevitable. Somebody his age who's a speed receiver, that there's gonna probably be some coming back to the mean on, or you're not gonna be a superhuman anymore. So it's definitely something the Dolphins have to consider by the time the season ends. Is this guy playing through stuff this year, and that's the reason we're at, or is this just the start of more stuff to happen because of what his age is?
But do you think the interception in Houston that seals the game? Cheetah has the ball in his hands and it gets ripped out from him. And then last week, I mean, he's dropping 2 times. He drops touchdown passes. And on the first drive of the game, he ran just like a corner route or a post route. Ball's in his hands and he just dropped it.
Yeah. I gotta think that's the wrist injury. I gotta think that's gotta have part of it.
If he's getting shut down in games, right? Can't create separation. His speed is clearly lacking from what it was a year ago. And it was obvious, Tobin, then I think we could sit here and have a conversation and say, hey, he's not the Cheetah anymore. He's not washed, but he's taken a step back physically. And I'm with you. I don't think that's the case. So I'm looking at a guy who can't catch the ball as consistently as he could a year ago. And I know he has a torn ligament in his wrist. Maybe, people want to say, oh, excuses, you're cranking up the excuse machine, and fine, if that's the take you want to have on it. But I don't know, that has to impact your ability to go make plays at the highest level. So, I'm not as down on Tyreek Hill as I am, over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I'm frustrated as hell that he has those drops, but I'm not as down on him as I think other people are, because to me, lack of targets, the fact that he's not even surpassed 1,000 yards yet, has less to do with Tyreek Hill and has more to do with Mike McDaniel and the scheme looking different this year, and the fact that he had Tim Boyle, Skylar Thompson, and Snoop Huntley throwing him passes for 4 weeks.
We'll take a break here on Game Day Uncensored as we're streaming live on YouTube and Twitch. Miami 56 WQM is the channel there, and on the Odyssey app, AUDACY is where you guys can check us out. We should be getting actives and inactives coming on up. We'll take a break. More to come here on the show. Back after this.
Football coverage on WQ.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Game Day Uncensored here. 560 WQAM. Take you guys up until this 4 o'clock kick. And unfortunately, everybody, we have the unfortunate news we've been waiting for. The Miami Dolphins have released their inactives, and Tua Tagovailoa inactive for today's game against the Cleveland Browns. No Tua today for this Week 17 matchup against Cleveland. It's tough, Dan. It's tough sledding. We're at a time right now to see this news come out yesterday. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. They were hinting at this, but he is a no-go for today.
And no Jalen Waddle. So Snoop Huntley, good luck. Hopefully Tyreek Hill can catch a lot of passes. And
Good
no
luck.
Eric Ezukama. No Eric Ezukama too.
No
Ooh,
Ezukama, no Waddle, no Walker, no Mo Kamara.
Ooh, this game's going to be fun.
Don't worry, though. Jordan Poyer's active, gentlemen, so we're good.
Oh, great.
We're
Good.
saved.
Some ayahuasca. He'll be great.
Another former team he can go sabotage the Dolphins against. Brutal, dude. Oh, my God.
This is going to be a fun watch today, man.
Actives and Actives brought to you by JM Lexus. Experience the excitement of football season with the Miami Dolphins and Miami Hurricanes and make this December unforgettable with JM Lexus. Don't miss out on special offers happening now at JM Lexus. It's tough not to have this feel like a complete disaster, to have this feel depressing because, again, I'm not saying he's faking it. I'm not saying that he's not really hurt. But, man, another season you don't have your quarterback at the end of it. Another one, Solana.
So he's played one full season. This is year 4 of Tua, right? This is year 4?
5.
5. He's played one full season a year ago that ended in disaster because you blew a 3-game lead on the division and then went to the playoffs, went to Kansas City, had 1 touchdown, and you got blown out with 7 points. And here we are, must-win game. You might get, a little help from the New York Giants of all teams, and you need your starting quarterback out there to at least keep you in the fight, right? Put you in a situation where maybe you win and maybe you're in, and he's unavailable. So I mean,
and he probably wouldn't have finished his rookie year if Fitzpatrick didn't get COVID. He probably, and I hate that bum. Fitzpatrick, not Tua, but he probably wouldn't have finished out his rookie year. His second to last year, we all know he had that game in Tennessee. That was the one where he actually finished out the season. That game in Tennessee, that was a disaster. You were at that game, yeah?
Yeah, awful. I still have nightmares about Tua not being able to hold on to the football.
The year after that, his first year with Mike, he of course had the concussion on Christmas Eve, a season where there were multiple Tua concussions. You had to play Teddy Bridgewater, and then you had to play Skylar Thompson to end the season. Wasn't available for the playoffs. Last year, the lone season, he played every game, and now yet again this season, he is going to go down and probably at least miss 5 games. But and we don't know what his status is for the final. By the way, the Giants have just scored another touchdown. Was that a return they took back?
It is.
It was the very beginning of the second half, so it has to be.
Wow. Look at the Giants. All right. Hey, Snoop, please?
Please.
Please?
Por favor, as I would say. Please, man. Come on.
Rough. Yeah.
You never see returns, by the way, right, Tobin? Like, how many returns, kickoff returns in the NFL? I can't imagine there's been more than 10. You never see that.
Crazy, man. But yeah, man, this is definitely it's tough for it not to be part of his legacy with it right now, Solana. You really cannot, whether he's tough or not, you can't count on him getting through a season. And that's just and that's going to be the mark on this is, for everybody who was skeptical about paying him. I was for paying him. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not going to be a fraud and tell you I said, hey, Jared Goff's getting paid, Trevor Lawrence is getting paid. That dude deserves to get paid if you're comparing him to what he's done with those guys. But I mean, he certainly had an injury past that those guys did not, and this once again has bit the Dolphins right in the ass this season. And yeah, it's a bit of a concern that you have in this long-term investment in him, and you just don't know if you can have him towards the end of a year.
It's a deeper conversation though, and one that we've had. And look, we'll have it again, for a couple months prior to the NFL draft. But this build where you threw a lot of money at Jalen Waddle, well, he's not available in a must-win game. You threw a lot of money at Tyreek Hill, and I know we just talked about it, but his production has not been as good as it was the last couple of years. You threw a ton of money at your quarterback. He's not available now in a must-win game. His durability continues to be a massive question. And, Tobin, if this was, hey, he hit his hand on somebody's helmet and he has a broken finger on his throwing hand, I mean, those things happen, right? Like, I don't think that's a question of like durability. It's just unlucky. But a major injury he had coming into the NFL, and this is now keeping him out of a game, that same hip, like that is a massive concern. A massive concern.
Well, the thing is, the thing with him that's concerning, right, is all of these injuries seem to occur when he gets out and he runs. And that's the danger of it. It's not like these injuries happen, like you said, in the fluke of it. It's like they all happen in the same occurrence.
Yeah.
He tries to go make a play happen, and all of a sudden he's in harm's way again. And this was kind of the thing, a couple years back, his injury was always the same theme. It was he kept falling back on his head, didn't know how to fall. Now it's, well, he can't go out and run because he's too injury prone. But he also kind of felt like this year, like he wanted to show, no, I can get out there. I'm going to put myself in the fire. And yeah, I'm sorry, man. He can't do that with himself. He can't put himself in the line of fire. He's too much of a risk.
It is funny though. It was the game against the Houston Texans. He threw a pick and he didn't even try to go after the guy who intercepted it. And then there were people complaining about that. But you can't have it both ways. Like, what was the game where he threw a pick and he went head first?
That was LA.
Tackle?
That was stupid.
It was stupid. And we're making jokes like, just have anybody go up there, grab him, and throw his ass to the ground to avoid injury.
Just carry him like a baby. Like pick him up, swaddle him, and take him off the sidelines, and just put him in the you sit there.
Yeah.
And he probably didn't go after the sideline because his hip was banged up and he didn't feel right. Which I saw. Who was that dude who hit him? 97. That guy looked like a mammoth. Like, of course,
Crazy.
Tua's not going to hold up to that.
No, and I don't want him to. By the way, I don't want him to. But look, just to finish out, what I was saying. You paid a bunch of money to Bradley Chubb, and he's out the entire season. You paid a bunch of money to Teron Armstead, and the deal with him. He's going to miss 3 to 4 games a season. I mean, it begs the question, like, what was this team built properly? Was this team, and we know it wasn't. We all know how we feel about the roster construction itself, but here you are where it's all kind of coming back to bite you in the ass, where you're in a game where your playoff chances are still alive and you can't rely on the people that you paid the most money to carry your franchise to be available and to be healthy in a must-win situation. And if that's the case, year in and year out with this organization, I mean, what are you banking on then? Like, just flash in the pan, luck of the draw, one season to go win a Super Bowl? That's not a good situation to be in, Tobin. It's just not.
No, it's definitely not. But I just think the team and he has to be smarter, right? Like, this has been a problem of his since college of trying to make plays that aren't there or plays that, aren't worth it. And Nick Saban has said this about him. Like, one of Tua's biggest flaws, he tries to make something out of nothing. And there are some guys, they're just not good at it. And they shouldn't be putting themselves in positions where they could be in more danger. He's not big. He's not mobile. So why does he keep putting himself in these positions of throwing his head around like a battering ram or throwing his body in places? It's silly. It's a silly thing. And then for everybody who wanted him to lose weight, I don't understand. You had a situation last year where he was thick and doing jiu-jitsu rolls, and he was safe. And he got through the season. This year, he lost weight. He can run great. Congratulations. Tua's gotten us 4 first downs and 5 games missed. So glad we had those first downs that he definitely couldn't throw for. It's ridiculous, dude.
Well, you're lashing out at people who are happy he lost
It's
weight.
just stupid. Everybody this whole year was like, I can't wait to see mobile Tua because the one Cardinals game is rookie year.
Yeah, well, guess what? It wasn't just everybody. It wasn't just the fan base. It wasn't just the media. It was Tua himself.
And that was
because
stupid.
He's the one going out there trying to make those plays. And it was, Mike McDaniel as well, and the rest of that Dolphins organization in the locker room talking about nimble Tua. And that this is going to be a different type of Tua Tagovailoa this season. So they all bought into it too, man.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
He bought into it himself.
Yeah, but this is more the same Tua. It hasn't been. Like, he tried to go back to something because he's like, oh, I don't want to be. It like reminds me of a fighter who doesn't want to be in a weight class because it's too hard to drain weight. It's like, yeah, but you're not big enough to be in the other weight class. You can't knock anybody out. You're supposed to be here. This is where you are. You stay here. Don't leave here. If anybody comes near you, get rid of the ball. But like, stop doing this thing where you're trying to turn yourself into Michael Vick. You are not. You are not Lamar Jackson. You are not Josh Allen. You are not those. That's it. And you're never going to be. What? And he sits here and he goes, and it finally seems like he has some self-awareness during the year where he goes, I really shouldn't put myself in those positions. And yet he's like running and there's just 300-pounders chasing him down because he's not fast because, of course, these freak defensive linemen can chase him down. But it's so dumb. I didn't understand this plan from the start, from him, the organization, whoever had this plan of, he's gonna be able to extend plays. Why? That's always when the bad stuff happens with him. Always.
But
if he's gonna be your quarterback, you got to have him in the most efficient place for him in his career.
I'm with you. I'm not telling you that you're wrong, but we saw what Tua Tagovailoa sitting in the pocket ends up getting you. And what does it end up getting you? Blowing a 3-game lead in the division and losing a playoff game when you can't make plays, when your first read is not there, when you can't throw the ball under 2.5 seconds because the defense has out-schemed you trying to do that. Tobin?
So they also got their most wins of his career that way too.
Yeah, not against playoff teams.
Fine.
Sorry.
That's fine, but if they have wins against if they had more wins against non-playoff teams, they wouldn't be in this position rooting for Drew Lock. By the way, the Colts just scored.
They did. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, 20-something yard touchdown.
Not great. Not feeling great. But yes, Waddle is also out. That's also not great.
I can't let him skate free either, man. That guy never available at the end of the season. Last year, same issue. Same issue last year. Same issue the year before. Injured by week 15, by week 16.
Well, that's
injured, not ready to go.
And that's one of the things where, like, when you're talking about changing the football operations, you very clearly have a guy who just look, he can draft some talented guys. I'll give Chris Greer's drafted some good guys. He could find some talent. But man, that guy doesn't give a rat's ass about your durability past. He really doesn't. And it's
at all.
And I'm counting on like 100% of the time it bites him in the ass. Like all the time. Whenever he goes in on somebody who has a history of injury, it always bites him in the ass. Yeah. And that to me has got to be the biggest philosophy change out of anything. It's like, hey, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing this on guys. It's already a violent sport and you can't account for stuff. When guys got a track record, please red flag it. Please.
It feeds that narrative that the team is soft, right? It does. It feeds that narrative. And I'm not saying that Tua's soft for missing this game. Like, I think the dude is tough. He wants to play and he wants to be out there, but can't finish seasons. You finish one season fully that you played. Jalen Waddle is somebody that the Dolphins just committed a ton of money to. He can't finish seasons. Like half the guys that you paid to be cornerstone players of your franchise in a must-win game, week 17, can't go because they're injured. It feeds that narrative that this Dolphins team is Charmin, man. They're just Charmin ultra soft.
We'll take a break here on Game Day Uncensored. We will check in with our guy Omar Kelly from the Miami Herald, get his thoughts on all things Dolphins to his injury and what the Dolphins are up against here against the Cleveland Browns. Take a break here on Game Day Uncensored, and back after this.
Tom McCarthy here from Westwood One, inviting you to join Mike
as players, this is the time that you find success is in an adverse situation where most may quit. So, it's been a long season, but it was probably the validation of why we've really been putting so much into this team and why we've been fighting for the season to stay alive.
Jordan Brooks agrees and says, if you got to fight, then fight.
For me, it's a mixture of both. I got to see where we at, and to keep the belief alive, and keep the belief going. Like I told the guys before the game last week, if they say if it's 0.1% chance, then we fight for that chance, because nobody knows what can happen. Everybody else outside will be like, oh, they got no chance, but you don't know who's going to win that game or who's going to lose that game and how it's going to shape up.
It's kind of been an odd week of practice for the Dolphins, with Christmas right smack dab in the middle of the week. Are they prepared enough to beat the Browns, an inch closer to a playoff miracle? Of course, other things have to happen too, but hope springs eternal. Time to get into it with Gameday Uncensored, the pregame show for real Miami football fans, with Tobin and Solana, Omar and Beasley. On AM 560 Sports, WQAM, FM 99.9 HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Ed Morse has your back. Ed Morse Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click edmoresawgrasscadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here, 560 WQAM. Tobin and Solana here with you. Dan Day producing for us as we're getting ready for Dolphins and Browns, Week 17 from Cleveland. Let's talk to our guy, Miami Dolphins columnist from the Miami Herald. He's in hell right now, a.k.a. Cleveland. I can't believe Leroy Hoard likes that city. It looks miserable. It looks miserable. Omar, how miserable is it there?
Now that I'm talking to you, I got to share this story with you. So I'm literally waiting for my plane to go to Cleveland, and guess who strolls up? Leroy Hoard, and starts doing a radio show with everybody headed to the flight. I'm just like, oh my God, like we're just talking, and everybody's trying to figure out who the hell we are, and it just was such a weird experience. But that's all the time with Leroy.
That's what it's like, man, and he apparently likes that city. So I don't know why, because.
I actually like Cleveland too.
You do?
Stop, Omar. Stop.
Yeah. No,
Stop.
I'm sorry. There's a player area called the Flats that's really good. I've had some good success there. A lot of action. Apparently, they get used to Midwest look, and so I look different than everybody else around here. So I do all right here in Cleveland. Cleveland's always been a kind city to me.
All right, I'm glad that you're getting a good reception there, but the pictures you tweeted out today, it looks like a horror movie.
Now today it's gloomy. It's not even cold. It's warm. I'm actually wearing like a hoodie, and I feel I'm going to be naked in the press box because it's so damn hot. It's like 60 degrees, and I guess they got the heater on around here. Everybody's like, normally this time of year it's about 20 degrees. You guys got lucky, and truly, you don't even need a jacket for how it is here, but it's raining, and so there's going to be a lot of wet ball. This is a wet ball game.
All right, so what was your reaction to the Tua news? We get the official word that he's out. Very strange. All of a sudden he got downgraded yesterday. So what do you make of the whole thing and how it went down?
This is all very stunning to me. And because you talk to Tua, you talk to everybody, not a big deal. This is just December, nicks and bruises, what everybody goes through. And then all of a sudden he gets listed as doubtful. What was it, 24 hours before the game? And doubtful for the Miami Dolphins mean you ain't playing. So I don't even think Tyler Snoop Huntley got the amount of work that he needs in order to effectively operate the offense. Like, honestly, and I'm just being candid with you, they barely practiced this week. And it's and this is the usual for December for all NFL teams. So don't think that Mike McDaniel has just gone soft. What people don't realize is in December, NFL teams barely practice just to make it to games. And then when you play the games, you lose about 3 starters per game, 3 players per game, just because their bodies are not meant to be playing this many games. So it's quite a shock. I have to think it's something way more serious than what I have to think it was he went to an evaluation to see what's going on, why this isn't getting better, why this hasn't subsided. And that evaluation showed them that, hey, this is something that's serious and something supposedly it's the same hip, because you got 2 hips. It's the same hip, but another injury, not the one that he suffered at Alabama. So, but no matter what, and I've dealt with players with hip injuries, it's never good.
Okay, and big picture, Omar, because, look, this is another year now that Dolphins, end of the season, need a win, and their starting quarterback is not available, on top of a myriad of other...
What do you mean need a win? Are you one of these delusional people that still believe that they're still in this?
The Colts are losing right now. They do have a chance.
What are you talking about, man?
They got a chance, man. Like, the Colts are losing to the Giants. The Giants are playing with guts right now.
I can't even deal with you people. You're Dolphin fans. You know better. You know better.
But Omar, I'm not expecting the Dolphins to make the playoffs. I'm not expecting them to make the playoffs, but what do you suggest?
You had your chance. You screwed it up. Now you gotta wait for the moon, the stars, every planet in the world to align to just sneak in to get slaughtered in the first round. Don't be delusional. You're not doing it. You're not making it.
So Joe Burrow just gets the chance. We don't get the chance.
No, you're not gonna get. Stop. Just stop. Come on.
It's a Browns team and a Jets team. All the hardest thing they probably needed is happening right now, which is for some reason the Giants are trying to win this game. I don't understand why. If that happens, then the window is absolutely open for them.
All right, sure, whatever.
I mean, to get drubbed, understandably, they're going to get killed in the first round, but still, getting in is getting in.
Omar, I'm with you. Like, the second they lost to the Green Bay Packers, I said the season's done.
No. It's Houston. No, Green Bay is fine.
I go back even further, because once they lost to Green Bay, I knew what was going to happen in Houston. So I had no faith in that team, especially with the offensive line in peril. But my point is, Omar, they technically have a chance, right? Technically. And if they technically have a chance, then the team is trying to capitalize on that chance to make the playoffs.
Technically, a 50-year-old woman who still has her period has a chance of having a baby. Is it a good idea? Is it likely going to happen? No. You technically can make it happen. Stop. Stop. This is not happening, people.
Omar, I'm not trying to convince you that this is happening. What I'm trying to establish here is the context of the Dolphins, quote unquote, are still in the playoff hunt. And again, for another season, the starting quarterback is not available to play in that game. So what does that mean, big picture, for this organization?
I am looking at this not playing to it is more big picture to me, the way that I view this, than it is like these are, I know you people want to say that they still got a chance, and sure, I thought they were more playing for a winning record than a faint playoff possibility, because if Cincinnati doesn't win that game, I think that did Cincinnati win the game? Which
they did
one?
win. Cincinnati won because Sean Payton didn't know the rules, because he didn't know that if he had a tie that he would have been good. So Cincinnati ends up winning in overtime. Then they needed the Colts to just lose one of their last 2. They're losing to the Giants right now. They are storming back, but they are losing to the Giants right now. So they would need a KC who's playing nobody next week to beat the Broncos, and they got to win against the Browns, and they got to win against the Jets. And Aaron Rodgers, I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to make it out of this game for the Jets.
he's getting beat up, man.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers might mail it in on that season finale. I'm not talking playoffs. Once you got lost to Houston, that whole conversation is done. Now, do I think they have a chance against the Browns? Yes, because respectfully, this is one of those games where, because I'm a fan of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I actually am. I'm a fan of Jameis Winston too. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson would have been a young quarterback that I would have drafted to play behind Tua. Different caliber quarterback, different dimensions, has tools. Now, the question is, would you rather a young developmental quarterback or would you rather Tyler Huntley? And, I don't know what that answer is. And I think that's one of those questions you're going to have to ask yourself heading into this draft, heading into this offseason. How are you going to get an appropriate, adequate backup? And while my colleague Barry Jackson said that Tyler Snoop Huntley has been told by the Dolphins they want to resign him and intend to resign him, I don't know if that's just as a camp body or an option guy, as opposed to somebody really competing for that number 2 job. Obviously, we know Tyler's probably going to be here, but he really doesn't have any future with the organization. So how do you want to address that backup? And obviously, we're learning now how valuable that backup quarterback position is with Tua.
What did you make this week of the Tyreek Hill post-game comments about the not practicing enough? Did you buy into that? Did you feel like that was excuse machine from Cheetah? What did you make of his reasoning for some of the key drops this year of not getting enough practice run?
I thought it was him taking accountability for his poor game and poor season, because Tyreek is usually not one of those guys who comes to the podium unless he just has a dominant game. So when but he has been a guy who's tried to step up and become a leader even after losses. He's the first one to speak. He wants to speak, just to show that he's a different guy. But then you also know that Tyreek likes attention. I've seen a growth from Tyreek. Probably the most immature human in the world is probably trying to grow up. So I'm proud of him for that. He told my colleague, Isaiah, earlier this week at one of Tyreek's events that he's been playing with a torn ligament in his wrist. And that does make sense. And also it does make sense. And then you talk to Wes Welker earlier in the week. Wes Welker said he's been battling an ankle injury. That does make sense. Tyreek does not go to the training room, which is why he's able to avoid and skirt being on the injury report. If you don't go to the training room, you don't get on the injury report, and Tyreek has people who work on him outside of the facility. So that's why he's able to hide a lot of his injuries. But he has been battling some things, and he's been battling them since training camp. I'd often talk about the fact that Tyreek, in training camp, Tyreek would show up in the practice like 40 minutes into practice, and after guys have been out there running and doing 7-on-7s, he'd show up for team drills and dust somebody for a 60-yard reception, like, because he's fresh. But there's a reason that he was doing that, which was he was getting medically worked on. So this has been a difficult season medically for Tyreek, and we know Jalen Waddle's not playing, so there's going to be a ton of attention given to him. Now you have you get to see what D. Eskridge, who I actually like. You get to see Malik Washington, who's really having a great second half of the season. You get to see River Craycraft. Actually they're playing not with Tua, but with Tyler Huntley, who ran the worst offense in the NFL when he was a starter. So we'll see.
Going back to Tyreek, though, Omar, I know there's a lot of people that are claiming that the Dolphins should move on from him. And is this just from your eyes, from your thought process, strictly, hey, he's dealing with injuries, and next year, if the Dolphins can have him healthy and Tua can be healthy, then we'll see the cheetah that we saw 2 years ago, not necessarily going for 2K, but 1,400, 1,500 yards production in pretty much every game. Like, is it that simple? He just needs to be healthy, or has he lost a step, do you think?
They still say he's running as fast as he normally runs, which is a great sign. I'm not going to say Tyreek has lost a step. Now, is he the most dominant player in the NFL, which I would have said he was last year? No, he's not. How can you change that? How can you fix that? I think it gets fixed with a better running game, with a better offensive line. Both of those have been pretty weak until last week. And I think that those are the things that open up the field for Tyreek. And without them, and especially without Jalen Waddle, you could just pay all the attention you want to pay to Tyreek. And okay, you let Jonnu do what he does, but basically, and that's with Tua. Imagine Tyler Huntley. It's basically you take Tyreek away from him, and he's probably going to be forced to play, check down to Devon Achane the whole game, which is pretty much what I expect today.
Do you think the Dolphins are going to go the same thing they did last week with rotating the right guard, or do we see Isaiah Wynn start this week, or how do you think they handle that?
They're not done with Liam Eichenberg, and I say that with a laughter. I apologize. I'm sorry. They're not done with Liam Eichenberg. I can't stop laughing every time I say that. And that, you know what? God bless them. That's all I can say. That's all,
bless
that's all
their
I can
hearts.
say. God bless them. Yeah. Bless your heart. Yes.
What about a couple weeks ago, Omar? We saw Tehran just have to check out of a game, and then he said he had lack of function in his knee. And we were kind of all like, "What the hell?" Right? And then he plays last week.
Found him. I still haven't found him to ask him about that. I saw him Friday, and I was gonna ask him, and I turned my back, and he was gone. But yeah, that still makes no sense. Tehran, I'm surprised to see him out there. He played well last week too.
But,
so it's clearly a sign that he's not giving up on the season. He's not giving up on playing. I don't know if he's going to play next season, but we talked to Mike McDaniel this week, and Mike McDaniel's like, Tehran is going to be welcome back. Tehran, if he decides to continue to play, he's going to be continuing to play here. And that was a pleasant surprise for me. It'll be more of what we've done his entire tenure here, which is Tehran doesn't practice, but he plays. But when you play as well as you play without practice, that's quite impressive. And to be honest, he has practiced he's practiced once per week, every Friday. So that's a step in the right direction for him.
Go check out his work. Omar Kelly, Miami Dolphins columnist from the Miami Herald. Thanks for the time, man.
All right, guys.
There you go. We'll take a break here on Gameday Uncensored. Get into some Porpoise Props on the way back. Back after this.
Football coverage
HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Brought to you by South Florida Lexus dealers and the Lexus RX, the luxury SUV for those who never want to lose their edge. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Chevrolet. Edmore Sawgrass Chevrolet is your lease return headquarters. Click EdmoreSawgrassChevrolet.com and see how you're backed by Morse when it comes to returning your lease. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. It is Game Day Uncensored here. 560 WQAM. Miami Dolphins getting set for the Cleveland Browns. No Tua Tagovailoa today. He is out. Injured hip. Snoop Huntley getting your start at quarterback today for Miami, although it has not changed the line, Solana. Still, the Dolphins are -3 going into this one. Before we get to our Porpoise Props, we got a little looky-loo around the NFL. The one we're looking at the most, Giants-Colts. Giants are up 28-20. Colts have the ball early in the fourth quarter. How are we feeling on this one, Solana?
Not great. It's the New York Giants, so not great at all. I thought once they got that kickoff return to open up the second half, I was like, all right, it's in the bag. But then Jonathan Taylor ran for a touchdown like 30 seconds later. So not great at all.
If it makes the Giants feel any better, the Raiders are also winning right now. They're up 19-10 over the New Orleans Saints.
Spencer Rattler, come on.
The rest of the games are bludgeonings. The Bills are up 26-0 on the Jets. The Jaguars are up 20-10 on the Titans. The Buccaneers are up 41-14 on the Panthers as they're still trying to win the South. And the Cowboys are down 34-7 to the Eagles with Kenny Pickett starting today.
Hey, did the Dolphins game open at Dolphins -3? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember. I don't know what the opening line was for it, to be honest with you. Dan, you have any idea what the opening line was for Dolphins and Browns? I have no idea. But
no idea.
I think it opened at 6.5.
Did it?
Dolphins. -6.5. I believe that's what it opened at.
Favorite. I'd be surprised by that.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking about it with Hawk on Monday, and we're like, man, 6.5 is a lot, just because of the fact that they're on the road, and you didn't know about Tyreek, and you didn't know about Waddle, and it makes sense that now it's down to 3 since Tua went to doubtful, and
that does make more sense. But I feel like I've been out of the loop more often this week than I normally am, just because I didn't do any shows. But I feel like I've seen it at -3, at least pretty late in the week. But I'm surprised it didn't shift at all with the Tua news.
Yeah, but it probably did. People were texting in 6.5.
I remember
it being at 6.
That's a pretty big drop then.
Yeah, but once the news dropped that Tua was doubtful with the hip injury,
it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, then it definitely went down. That's crazy though, right? That he moves a line, 2.5 points, 3 points. I mean, that's the type of drop off that the Miami Dolphins have from their starting quarterback to their backup. And look, I mean, Tobin, you're looking around the league right now. The Philadelphia Eagles are without Jalen Hurts. In comes Kenny Pickett. He's throwing darts all around the field. He leaves the game, I believe, with an injury. And I don't even know who their third string quarterback is. He's throwing dimes to A.J. Brown. It's just embarrassing, man. Everybody can produce with their backups. And here we are waiting until 4 o'clock today to watch Snoop Huntley go 4 of 19 in the football game. It's just so frustrating, man.
I understand, man. I understand your frustration. I certainly do. That being said, let's try and make those frowny faces into smiles with some money. It's time for some Porpoise Props.
It's time for...
I don't know about you, but that looked like money.
Porpoise Props.
Hopefully you didn't jinx us.
Props.
And your Porpoise Props are sponsored by Hard Rock Bet. Hard Rock, roll with us. Got the Hard Rock app fired up right now. I'm looking at some Dolphins and Browns parlays. Solana, Tyreek Hill today to get into the end zone is plus 175. Do you feel good about the Cheetah in a sloppy game, sloppy Joes? Do you feel good about the cheetah getting in the end zone today at that number?
I do not, and I believe the Colts just scored a touchdown. By the way, not the.
Oh no.
Yeah, is it confirmed? Looks like it's going to be confirmed. They were down 8, so we'll see if
They got to go for 2, but I'm sure
they're
just
going for 2. They're going for 2.
Jonathan Taylor right up the old esophagus for them.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So that Tobin, I don't feel good about Tyreek getting into the end zone just based on what I've seen from Tyler Huntley. Look, I hope, going back to our conversation earlier, I hope he has a better grasp of the offense. I hope Mike McDaniel, in preparation for this perhaps happening where Tua was going to miss this game because he was questionable with the hip injury all week, made the necessary adjustments to get the most out of Tyler Huntley.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt that way for 5 weeks, and it never happened. So I don't feel good about Tyreek Hill getting into the end zone. I just don't at this point.
Can I tell you what's kind of speaking to me? I may be a fool for this because I don't know how much he's going to play.
If it's Julian Hill anytime touchdown, I'm logging off.
Well, it's not.
Okay.
But what about Jalen Wright at plus 2,000? Plus 2,000, Jalen Wright. Okay. Sloppy game, Gameday. Don't shake your head at me. They got to give the ball to somebody. Mostert gets a little banged up, a little nick in there. All of a sudden he can't. Plus 2,000 for the rookie to get into the end zone. Pretty good juice.
I don't hate it.
Pretty good juice. I don't think I'm throwing away my $10 there, Gameday.
Raheem Mostert has a fractured sternum. You're telling me Achane, Jalen Wright, they get to the red zone, pound it in with Jalen Wright? Like it's not the craziest thing in the world. I like that, Tobin. I really do.
Dan, you am I a fool?
He didn't play last game at all.
He did.
Coach's decision. He's
But
had problems gaining yards all season, and you think with the season on the line and a backup quarterback, they're going to trust the rookie running back that hasn't produced that much this year and go away from Devon Achane.
What about, guess who's also plus 2,000 is Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson in the end zone?
That's better.
Miss me with that. Miss me with Jeff Wilson because the Dolphins have shown us they only use Jeff Wilson when it doesn't make sense. By the way, everything Gameday said is so true. A normal, competent organization would not go to a running back who has played sparingly this year in a quote-unquote must-win game. It's not rational, right? It doesn't make sense. Well, Gameday, welcome to the Miami Dolphins. This is what you have to do. You have to think outside the box. What is the dumbest possible decision that they can make? Okay, that's the one we're going to see today.
All right, one guy who's been a cash cow for us has been Zach Sealer. Zach Sealer in a sloppy game, anytime touchdown, defensive paw bashing and score plus 5,000. Possible.
I'll ride with you on any Zach Sealer bet, brother, because last week you nailed it. You nailed it with Zach Sealer over a half sack, parlayed with Calais Campbell over a half sack. I mean,
Chop
you
Robinson.
nailed that.
Chop.
Oh, Chop Robinson. That's right.
It's gone down too, by the way, because last week we got it at 8-1. This week you do it, it's like 3-1 if they both get a sack.
Yeah.
So they're not. I mean, I'm going to tell you that I just know this because Leroy's the Browns talk this year. Their offensive line sucks. I mean, it's. I mean, if you want to talk about a game where the Hogs can get fat, this is one you might want to look at for the Miami Dolphins. Their offensive line. You think the Dolphins' offensive line is bad? That Browns offensive line sucks. So just keep it in mind. Keep it in mind, everybody.
Okay.
That is Porpoise Props. We'll predict the game ball on the other side and give some final thoughts as we ride off into the sunset of this Week 17 Dolphins and Browns game. Back with more after this.
Football coverage on WQAM is sponsored by
Uncensored. On AM 560 Sports, WQAM. FM 99.9 HD2, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Game Day Uncensored is sponsored by Southern Lexus Dealers. Find your summer getaway at the Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event. Get offers on select models through September 3rd. Also sponsored by the free Odyssey app. Download it today to listen to us live or on demand. And by Edmore Sawgrass Cadillac. When it comes to returning your lease, Ed Morse has your back. Ed Morse Sawgrass Cadillac is your lease return headquarters. Click edmoresawgrasscadillac.com. Ed Morse is a proud partner of the Miami Dolphins.
And welcome back, everybody. Game Day Uncensored here. Final segment, 560 WQAM. Getting you ready for Dolphins and Browns. We got Heat basketball coming up later on today as the Heat take on the Houston Rockets, Very good team on the West. Second night of a back-to-back. No Duncan Robinson today for the Miami Heat, so they'll have to find another starter to put there as Jimmy Butler's reconditioning from God knows what.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I got to believe it, Surprised he doesn't show up to Houston today, just being like on the sidelines, being like, hey, everybody. Not playing. Reconditioning still. Just reconditioning. Oh, man. Game Day Uncensored also brought to you in part by your South Florida Chevy dealers. You're looking for more power, capability, and technology with Chevy trucks. You're ready for anything. Chevrolet, together, let's drive. Solana, I'm done making you Heat uncomfortable. Who do you think gets the game ball today for the Miami Dolphins should they win?
Man, this is tough. Are we dumb for looking at the offensive side? Right?
No.
Like when I'm thinking of game balls, like I usually tend to look at the offensive side because, all right, who's going to make plays? Who's going to get into the end zone? And my default is Jonnu Smith or Devon Achane, the two most reliable options on the offensive side of the football. But I'm gonna go defensive side, and I won't take your boy Sealer because I feel like that's who you're gonna go with, and it's been a solid pick pretty much every single week. By the way, Malik Neighbors, another touchdown.
All right,
Neighbors. Crazy
Giants are up 9.
35-26 now. 35-26.
I can't believe it. If this is what it all comes down to, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it was like a 60-yard screen pass out to the flat, and he just ran it all the way home.
Where is that Kansas City game next week? Is it in KC?
No, it's in Denver.
Right.
Yeah, not good. I'm going to go Chop Robinson today. Finish off the season strong. He's been playing great, and you mentioned that the offensive line, per Leroy, who's a Browns expert, is just trash. So I'm going to go with the Rook today. Maybe 2 sacks. Get after the quarterback and make plays on the defensive side of the football.
He's 3 sacks away from passing Jalen Phillips' rookie record, which would Jalen Phillips has the rookie sack record for the Dolphins at 8.5. Chop has 6 on the season. So that's within striking distance for him. If he's able to have a monster game today, or if he's able to, have 2 good games, 3 sacks in 2 weeks is not crazy. He's been on a crazy tear. I love the Chop Robinson celebration. I love that everybody does it together. It's replaced the Waddle as the best celebration simply because we don't get to do the Jalen Waddle this year, and Jalen Waddle strangely retired it. I'm like, all right, dude, you don't take away my feel good. But either way, everybody's now doing the Chop. The Chop is the new thing we all get to do. I'm thinking of dressing like an aqua and orange lumberjack next year to a game. Let's just let's just have fun with it. But I like it. I like Chop Robinson. I'm going to go with Snoop. I think Snoop's going to pull this off today. I think that he's had some time. I think revenge game factor. The Browns let him go. This is essentially the quarterback they let him go for in DTR. So I think that he's looking at this being like, this is who you let me go for. Something about that makes me feel like he can have a nice performance. It's been a bit of a weird day in the NFL too. So I think Snoop is going to get my game ball prediction today for the Miami Dolphins. I know that Mike McDaniel, if they win, is going to give away like 9 of them, and so it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to get a game ball. If you looked at him right, he's going to give you a game ball.
Yeah. And giving Jason Sanders, I know he was perfect last week, but like You know how I feel about that, man. His job is to go kick field goals. Like he did his job. I mean, we're handing out game balls because the kicker made kicks. Everybody gets a game ball with this Mike McDaniel. I'm surprised at how much faith you have in Snoop Huntley. I wish I was there with you. You know, like I wish I had that same faith. But I just don't. I hope you're right though, man. I hope he looks good. I like the idea of the revenge game for him, but like I got to see it. You know, I have to see it before I put any sort of faith in Tyler Huntley.
By the way, Josh Allen with another monster day. We have Saquon Barkley eclipsing 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
The day for Aaron Rodgers is one for the ages. I mean, he's so bad. He's been sacked for a safety. Is it 2 or 3 interceptions today?
I think 2, but
2 interceptions, sacked for a safety, got an unnecessary roughness call for throwing an interception and shoving the guy that got the pick out of the sidelines. 2 for 18, 112 yards, no touchdowns. His quarterback rating is 44, and Tyrod Taylor's in there now.
Do you wanna know the most embarrassing part about that, Tobin?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a championship fantasy football game today.
Okay.
And I started Aaron Rodgers.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's just say,
who does he have?
I'm cooked. I'm cooked. I have no chance at winning.
Well,
But
who are your options?
Geno Smith, who they scored 6 points in that game, so I'm glad I didn't end up going with Geno Smith. So Aaron Rodgers.
These were your guys all year, or did somebody get hurt?
No, these were my guys all year. I was cycling through quarterbacks, like best available every week, because that's my philosophy in fantasy. Like I don't draft a quarterback high because I'd rather – my team is stacked. I have Saquon Barkley. I have Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp. Devontae Smith is on my bench in this game. Dude has 2 touchdowns, 30 points. I benched Mike Gesicki, 18 points. I just made all the wrong moves, but I started Aaron Rodgers. My thought process was they'll be playing from behind the whole game, and he'll just be throwing the entire second half. Well, guess what? He's going to end the day with 0.48 points in a championship game, and my team's cooked. Saquon didn't even get into the end zone today. My team's cooked. I'm easily the dumbest fantasy football owner in the history of time. Just cooked.
Speaking of fantasy numbers, Josh Allen just scored his 40th touchdown of the season, 5 straight seasons. First guy in NFL history with 5 straight seasons of 40 touchdowns. Probably locked up the MVP today.
We're in hell. We're in hell, man. Hey, what'd you make of Teddy Bridgewater coming back and having a landing spot immediately with the Detroit Lions?
I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him. Like, you know, I'm surprised he didn't look here and be like, you guys want me to take it? But, you know, good for him. He gets to go on a ride. And, you know, if the Dolphins lose today, I'm sure Calais Campbell will be joining them. You know, like that's how it feels. But no, I'm happy for it. I'm happy for Teddy Bridgewater. You win the state championship. Now you get to go on a playoff run. That's absolutely fun. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. That's great news for him. Great news for him. I'm happy for him. But
that does make sense, by the way. Calais Campbell going to Detroit. I mean, Detroit is just like everybody's been hurt for them on the defensive side. I think I saw a stat that they lost 17 players on the defensive side of the ball. Like that's insane. And they keep winning, by the way. Like they're going to be, I don't know if they're going to end up being the 1 seed out in the NFC, but either way, like they're going to be a playoff team, and they're still the favorite. I think it's between them and Buffalo to win the Super Bowl this year.
You think this Tua thing is going to be like, all right, so we know he's out today. Do you think Mike McDaniel like gives us insight after the game? Because let's say the Dolphins win and this holds up, even though I think the Colts just scored again. Jesus, nobody's stopping anybody in this game. It's 35-33. But let's just say by some chance the Giants are able to hold on to this and not blow this game. Do you think that we're going to see Tua again this year? Because it kind of sounded like with Bees and Omar, they're now like thinking, oh, this could be donezo for the season. Obviously, only if he's alive. If you're done, you're done. But I'm saying if the Dolphins are alive for the playoffs next week, they win, the Colts lose, they know for sure if they win next week and the Broncos lose that they'll be in. Do you think that this is the end for Tua, or do you think that we need more insight from the coach?
I would say we probably do need a little bit more insight. Like, how serious is that injury? Because it sounds like Tua got another diagnosis or another opinion on that hip, and they basically told him, like, yeah, not a smart decision to go play. So I think we need a little bit more insight. But Tobin, if I had to guess, his season's done. If I had to guess, like, his season's done. If he's not going to play in this game, because they're just exhausting every responsible option to keep him from going out there and hurting himself with already an injury that almost ended his career. I would guess, like, there's really no reason to put him out there and risk injury the final week of the season.
It is a bummer. Like, look, I know people got a lot of feelings about Tua and people, the ones who are always skeptical of him. Congratulations. You spent your year with a victory dance of your team being miserable, but he is your quarterback. So, I don't know what to tell you. Like, he's not going anywhere probably next year, probably for the next 2 years, if I had to guess, especially while this guy's the head coach. But there is a part of this guy that just feels, in a way, I mean, good for him last year because he got through a healthy year and was able to get his bag. But man, from a performance standpoint, it just feels like he's always snake bit. Like, this is what's going to happen is you're going to get banged up again with any chance or any hope that you have, and you're just always sitting by watching your team. And the thing is like when he's gone, they suck. They got no chance without him.
Awful.
They're awful without him. I don't know how good they can be with him, but I know one thing: they're terrible without him. And so I'm just hopeful today, you're going up against you're going up against a team that's more awful and that can keep any hopes alive. And I'm not here with Omar, who's like, oh, you guys are doing pixie dust and nonsense. First of all, why wouldn't you want to make the playoffs? Like, what is it? What are you saving yourself from? Of course you'd rather make the playoffs if that's a possibility. But I certainly don't understand the idea of, oh, well, why have him out there? There's no chance. There is a chance.
Right.
I mean,
which is what I was trying to explain to him. Like, how I felt about this team the second that they went into Green Bay. Like, I knew how that game would end, which is the Dolphins can't win that game. So I've had very little hope in this team going to the playoffs. How I felt coming into the season as well, where I thought this team would regress, and here it is. But at the end of the day, like, if there is a chance where you can still go into Week 18 with hope that you can still win a game, get lucky that the Broncos lose, which isn't insane. It's not like the craziest thing. This isn't the Bills playing the Jets at home and you need the Bills to lose. Like, I mean, it's possible. Why wouldn't you want your quarterback out there to just go handle what you can handle? So yeah, like, I'm with you. If he was healthy enough and this wasn't serious, I think he would be playing today. I don't think the team is punting on the season. I don't think they feel the way Omar feels, which is, hey, it's done. Like, there's no point in having him out there.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, especially with the idea that, they're going to let Calais Campbell go or whatever. Like, I can't imagine that they're already waving the white flag on it. I imagine it's got to be bad, which is not great because I get you. His two most consistent problems have been that hip and the head injuries, and they keep lingering. And, this is a guy you're invested in. So I guess then your attention kind of goes to next year is like, all right, do they what is the plan? Do they draft his replacement? Do they go into free agency with a better contingency plan? Because this year they completely botched it. I mean, they completely botched the plan to keep themselves protected if this does happen. So I don't know, but that's another story for another day. I mean, we're going to be facing this situation coming up here. Doesn't feel like Mike McDaniel is going to go anywhere based on getting a game ball. Chris Greer, maybe that's another story, but I doubt it. I feel like these guys are safe. I feel like that's where the owner's heart lies, is he doesn't want to get rid of them. We could argue it until we're blue in the face. I get you guys, but I think for right now, this is, I think that he's not, he doesn't seem like, when I see that yippee face on him this past week, just didn't look like a guy who was in the mood to fire anybody for whatever reason. His standard is low to keep himself happy. and I don't understand it. I don't think even after all these years of him owning the team and no playoff wins with him as the owner, still don't have a pulse on him. But today they're gonna have to do this. Hopefully Snoop's up for the task, man.
They should win this game, even with Snoop Huntley. Like, as little hope as I have in Snoop Huntley, the defense has been playing, for the most part, pretty well. You're going up against a depleted Browns team. Like, they should win this football game, Tobin. They should handle their business today on the road.
Well, we'll find out. Everybody, that is our show for today. Game Day Uncensored. No post-game edition as they got Heat basketball coming up. So you'll just have to wait during the week for Dan Day's musings on what went down. Instead, you get the end of a Heat road trip that, was full of reconditioning and angst. We'll talk to you guys next time. Everybody enjoy the rest of your football and have a great new year, everybody.
Well, folks, that's it for the Week 17 edition of Game Day Uncensored. Time now to play some football. The Dolphins versus the Browns.